Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Davinsky TV. I am your host, Dr. Davinsky. Today, we are going to debate whether Black Americans should get reparations for slavery. I'm going to argue against reparations, and my debate partner, Dr. Syn-Q, will be arguing for reparations. So whilst we wait a minute for a few more of you guys to join the live, Dr. Syn-Q, why don't you give a little introduction about yourself and what you're about, basically, with your channel and some of your, I guess, the content you create.
Okay, just want to see is my sound, everything working?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, all right, excellent. So, well, brief introduction.
Yeah, just a brief introduction while people join the live. You can tell us your channel name and where to find you, what you do.
Okay, I am just I wrote something down here. So this is like my introduction that I always tell people.
Okay.
It's basically I, Dr. Syn-Q, have, like millions of others, I am a longtime victim of and servant to racism, white supremacy, and the 9 major areas of people activity, which are economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. My experiences, observations, and or studies have led me to use social media to convey my ultimate objective to replace white supremacy with justice. By motivating an effective number of people to behave in a manner that reveals truth, promotes justice, and helps the person who needs help get the most constructive help they need. I believe that this goal can be reached through practicing and producing supplements to the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller Jr. It is a code of thoughts, speech, and/or actions designed to help victims of white supremacy, non-white people, focus on eliminating racism, white supremacy through problem solving. Freedom of speech is my First Amendment right, which I have chosen to express here. The views expressed in my content are mine and, of others who I agree with. They do not reflect the views of my family members, friends, employer, business, professional, religious, or political organizations that I'm associated with. Sometimes the views of another person may appear to be related to my own, but they're not, unless I specifically state so. It is coincidental and means that we simply share similar observations. It does not mean that we are responsible for each other's thoughts, speech, and or actions. I am an United Independent, and I'm the only me in the whole universe. There never was a me before me, and there will never be another me after I'm gone. And then the last thing I want to say is that the race problem hasn't been solved, and the race problem hasn't been solved because the people who have the ability to solve it do not have the will, and the people who have the will to solve it do not have the ability. And I'm one of those who has the will but doesn't have the ability. So thank you for having me.
No problem. I think we all have some kind of ability. As Tupac said, you can plant a seed and that seed can grow. So just you, by being on this stream, you may spread an idea and maybe the right person hears that idea and repeats it, and things can change that way just through, the spreading of memes pretty much. I'll give a little bit of an introduction to me. I am Dr. Davinsky, PhD in sociology. I retired at 28 and travel the world, living my best life. I'm a journalist, comedian, poet, political commentator, and all-round content creator. You can check out some of my playlists for my various debates, interviews with famous personalities, along with many financial and travel tips. So without further ado, I will give Dr. Syn-Q, if he's prepared and ready, 1 to 5 minutes to lay out his introduction as to why Black Americans should get reparations. And before you begin, everyone who's currently watching, could you just like and comment? I think it will boost the live stream. We kind of got set off on a bad path earlier, and that will get everyone back in here. Sorry, Dr. Sinclair, are you ready to... Syn-Q, are you ready to continue with your introduction, or...
Well, I am. But I have some, before we get into the what you call a debate, and I prefer to call it a discussion. But before we get into that, I actually have some questions I need to ask you,
Uh-huh.
just to make sure that this is still a learning process for me. So I just want to make sure that everything is on the up and up here.
Yeah.
I just got some questions for you.
Yeah, sure. Fire away.
Fire away. All right. So your answers to the questions. These questions, I made them as simple as possible. They should be yes, no, or plead the fifth, or maybe I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you plead the fifth has anything to do, because you're not. Are you a United States citizen?
No, I'm Australian.
You're Australian. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the fifth really wouldn't apply to you, I guess. So
But
I guess
I
you could
get I
jump
get
in.
the message though. Prefer
You get
not
the
to
message.
answer. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, all right, all right. Okay, excellent. So, first question: why did you pick me for this so-called debate?
I forget exactly where I found you, but I think we had a bit of an exchange in a Twitter thread, if I recall correctly. And then I saw that you make YouTube content. So I thought, maybe you're interested in debating this topic, because this is a topic that I've wanted to debate for some time. It's a contemporary issue. It's a controversial issue. And so that's what I wanted to do, is just to spread, a counter narrative.
Okay. That makes sense. So we had a Twitter exchange, a previous Twitter exchange. Okay.
I think so, yeah.
All right. And so let's see. Why did you want to do this at 9 a.m. today? Like, I mean, I
Well,
know you said 9 a.m., then you said 8 a.m., and then it's just
well,
kind of just.
I live in a completely different time zone. So right now it's midnight. So the earlier for you, the better for me. Because I can go to sleep. You know what
Oh,
I'm
got
saying?
it. So it's
Yeah,
midnight because you're in Thailand, right?
yeah.
Oh, okay,
So
okay,
it's
all right.
midnight here, so that's why.
Oh, got it. All right. So that makes a lot more sense. Okay, now my next question. This is the very, very critical question, right? Are you a white person?
I mean, by definition, I am sure. I'm someone of European descent.
Okay, so that would be a yes. That's a yes.
I prefer not. I don't prefer to color code people, but it's the world we live in. That's the categories that we have been assigned. I prefer to assign people by ancestry. So I'd prefer European, Australian, or African American. I prefer to connect the people to a land, rather than just saying color. So that's my
Okay.
personal view. But sure, I identify as white.
Oh, okay. You identify as white. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and then um, can you tell me what an African American is?
So an African American, so there's a new term that I've seen recently. I don't know if it's new, but I've seen it recently. What is it? Foundational Black American. So there's a differentiation between foundational Black Americans and African immigrants, basically. So I think today what we're going to be talking about are foundational Black Americans' claim to reparations. Correct me if you have a different perception, but that's where I'm going with it.
Okay. What is a foundational Black American?
I'd say someone who came over in the beginning of American history, who lived through slavery, not someone who just flew over recently from Sierra Leone or Liberia.
Sierra Leone. Oh.
Well, any African country, even Elon Musk, you could technically say is an African American. But when
That's
we're
right.
talking about
That's
foundational
right. You
Black
could actually
Americans,
say you could actually say that Elon Musk and I believe Charlize Theron. You could say both of them are African Americans. And me, in my journey as a victim of racism, white supremacy, being confused about what racism is and how it works, I seek to ask questions to find out what, especially these terms, because I don't
yeah,
ever remember taking a vote with a whole bunch of other Black people and we
yeah,
saying we're African Americans.
yeah.
I don't remember
Well,
us taking a vote to say yes, we're Negroes. I don't remember a vote us we ever said we were colored. We even saying that we were Africans.
there is actually a vote, because I looked into this. For the racial
Wait.
categories in the U.S. Census, there was an
Uh-huh.
actual vote. So European American, which I prefer, that got about 2% of the vote. They took a random sample across the US of like white people, and they saw that 2% of people liked the term European American. Therefore, that was a low priority. That's how we got categorized as white, because more white Americans and more European Americans preferred the term white. So I presume the same thing happened with Black Americans or African Americans. They've polled to see what the majority of people from that demographic prefer. That's how it tends to work for the census, at least.
Are you but you're not a United States citizen, right?
No.
Okay, so
But the thing with
you can be considered a white person, right?
Yeah, sure.
And not be here. So I mean, this census vote or whatever you're talking about, you didn't take part in it, right?
No. But the way that I view it is that American culture is the dominant culture of the Western world. So Australian culture, Canadian culture, UK culture, it's downstream from America. So the categories that America tends to I guess, codify into people's minds through Hollywood, through the media, through all of academia. The term white, the term black, the term African American, European American. Our countries tend to follow what the Americans set. So that's why I'm interested in American politics, American culture.
Okay, got it. So now, I heard you say you said 2% of white people.
Yeah, about 2%.
Voted,
Yeah.
And and that's how I became an African American. That's how Black people became African American, because white people voted.
So the way the census tends to come up with these categories is for polling. So they'll take a sample of European Americans, Black Americans, whatever, and they'll be like, "What term do you like to identify as a group?" And then they'll give I guess they'll give a selection, and it's a poll. So that's how they tend to take place.
Well, I just want to say that as a person, the person here in the United States that has taken the census, I've never seen that on there.
No. It's not every census is they take it prior to the census. So they poll a demographic, and they'll be like, okay, what term do you like to identify as? And then what term they poll as the highest is what will be put on the census, which is what you will tick or what other people will tick. But unless you've got some more, I guess, poignant questions, I think we should probably get into the debate, just so people that join at a later time.
Well, what I'm trying to do is I want to make sure that the confusion is eliminated, because so from my perspective, any white person who is able to practice racism may be practicing racism against me. And I don't know when. That could be happening right now, as far as I know. I do not know.
Well, I mean, you've got to take me as you have to take me as good faith.
What I have learned,
basically,
what I've learned over the years is that a lot of times it has to do with the words that are being used, right? And so, I was just noticing how, the topic was, it went from a debate about should African Americans receive reparations, then it said should Black Americans receive reparations, and now I hear you using the term foundational Black Americans. And so to make sure that I'm being specific about what I'm discussing here, I want to find out, who are we talking about here?
So I'll clarify. So I use Black American, African American. I use those interchangeably. Foundational Black American is part of the debate. So who you actually argue for will be part of the debate. We can get into that later. But usually as we get into the debate, you define terms as you go. So you should start with the introduction. I'll start with my introduction. And if we have a miscommunication on definitions, then we can clarify that during the debate. Otherwise, this will just drag out. This isn't a good format for the debate.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression that usually when I see discussions going on, at least the ones that I'm thinking an ultimate objective of I think, like, the purpose of these discussions or debates, right, is to help people learn, right? and so if we don't define what we're talking about before we get into the discussion, it seems to me more people are going to be confused as we're going through the discussion. Like if
I
we're
mean,
going through and then we start, I don't want to like have to be like arguing a point with you in the middle of the debate because we
yeah.
can't agree on what means what. You see what I'm
Well,
saying? Like,
I feel like the debate topic's pretty concise to the point. I mean, should Black Americans, should African Americans get reparations for slavery? I mean, should they get reparations? That group, okay. And then if you want to, half of the debate, half of what I wrote out is about how this is logistically impossible due to the ambiguity of racial terms, due to the ambiguity of like who is Black, who is white, who is mixed. So this isn't a clear thing. This is part of the debate. We're having a debate now before we've even had the introductions. So if we continue, we can just do the introductions and then we can go from there, have a free-flowing conversation, That's how I'd like to proceed. So if you don't mind, do you want to go with your introductions now or I can go first?
Oh, go ahead. Let's do it.
So you want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So firstly, I'm going to lay out my arguments as to why Black Americans should not get reparations. Okay. It's totally impractical in any logistical sense. According to Volume 3 of Cambridge World History of Slavery, I quote, "Most societies in the past have had slaves, and almost all people in the past have been slaves and the owner of slaves." Could you just mute your microphone until I'm done, please? It'll help with that audio.
Oh, yeah, that's what sorry about that.
So, as I said, most societies in the past have had slaves, and almost all people in the past have been both slaves and the owner of slaves. Okay, so in theory, if we were to compensate Black Americans for slavery, it would open up a can of worms that would have pretty much every person on Earth having some kind of claim for reparations, as pretty much all of us have ancestry that was enslaved at some point in time. A question I'll later pose to Dr. Syn-Q is why he would morally justify reparations to Blacks who have slave ancestors. According to academic Kirilov from the Oxford published paper titled "Slaves, Moneylenders, and Prison Guards, the Jews of the Trade in Slaves and Captives in the Crimean Khanate." So from the second paragraph of page 2, which I'll link all the sources in the description of this video, we can see that I'll paraphrase, 2 million white people were enslaved from the 1500s to the 1700s. Thus, the Black Sea slave trade was comparable to the transatlantic slave trade of roughly the same period. Add on top of that, the millions of white slaves taken from all over Europe, from Italy to Iceland, from the Barbary slave pirates. And I'd question whether the Muslim world, including parts of Africa, would owe white Europeans reparations for the slavery of white Europeans. As you can see, claiming reparations for the enslavement of someone's ancestry becomes tricky, very quickly. According to a study reported on by Vox, millions of self-described white Americans have 1% or more African ancestry. Vox reports, in South Carolina and Louisiana, researchers found that 1 in 20 people who called themselves white had at least 2% African ancestry. And in a lot of the South, about 10% of people who identified as white had African ancestry. The researchers could even pin down the timing the mixture generally occurred, the early 1800s when slavery was still legal. This brings up several questions as to the logistical impossibility of having a fair reparation system. What percentage of Black ancestry do you have to have reparations? Do so-called white people with Black ancestry linked to slavery get reparations? And many more uncomfortable questions. Instead of walking through this minefield, how about we target the actual issue instead of attacking the straw man of race or slavery? The real issue is wealth inequality, so let's advocate for reparations for poor people in the USA regardless of their race. This is better as it's not racially excluding. Not all Black people are poor, but all poor people are poor. I don't think it's fair that some privileged Black person from a wealthy family gets money over some poor white person living in a trailer in Alabama. These kind of policies should focus on class and not race. Having a class-based reparations program will disproportionately benefit Black Americans as a collective anyway, due to them disproportionately being poor. So I'll let Dr. Syn-Q address his opening, and then we can go into open dialogue. And maybe some of you guys can join at a later point, and we can have an open discussion with more of us. So Dr. Syn-Q, the floor is yours. I'll mute myself now. Dr. Syn-Q, you're still muted.
Could you share the screen? Is that possible? Could you share my screen?
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. Sorry.
Okay, but on my end, it says there's a present button, and when I click on it, I see it says share screen, and then when I put it on the option to share, let's see.
It's probably because I'm on an iPhone and you're on a desktop. So on the desktop version of StreamYards, you can do a lot more features. Okay. But if you want to just read the screen, we'll take it at face value. What you say? I don't think you're making stuff up.
All right. Well, let's do it this way. Yeah, I'll just pull out my phone. So, when you sent this to me, it said the title of the debate was "Should African Americans Get Reparations?" Right? Now the title says, "Should Black Americans get reparations for slavery?" Which one are we talking about? Because I prepared for the title that you sent me before, which said, "Should African Americans get reparations?"
What was the second title? Should Black Americans get reparations?
Well, the title that I see on your the title that you sent me today for today's debate, what you sent in the meme, it says, "Should Black Americans get reparations for slavery?" Correct?
Well, argue whichever one you want, because I use those terms interchangeably. I don't think this is really an issue. But if you want to make a distinction,
it absolutely is an issue, because here in the States, let's take California, for example, which I'm sure you've heard about. They were estimating that each Black person here in California should get around $250,000. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard numbers thrown out. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. All right. And that's not for slavery. That the reparations estimate that they made is for everything. Actually, just one thing, just one act that they say is racism. I guess they prefer to use the word discrimination, but it was for housing discrimination. We're just talking about one. We're just talking about one situation that happened after slavery.
Okay. Usually, when people talk about reparations, and as I specified for the debate, this is reparations for slavery.
Usually, when what people? Because I'm a person
in the conversation of reparations, we're talking about 40 acres and a mule. Like, this is the conversation.
Okay. All right, 40 acres and a mule. All right. So,
because I think that there's a stronger case for reparations based on redlining and all of this stuff that's happened to actually people that are alive now. It's harder to claim reparations for something you didn't actually live through. So this is why the topic was slavery.
Okay, but again, you changed the topic. Okay, I just read.
I didn't. I refuse. I didn't change the topic. The African American.
You said you use them interchangeably. How am I supposed to know that you do that?
Well, how am I supposed to know that?
How am I supposed to know that when you say should African Americans get reparations, that also means the same thing as should Black Americans get reparations for slavery?
How do you view these?
You said earlier we took a vote on that. There was a vote taken for Black people to be African Americans, and I tried to tell you I never participated in that vote, so I've never heard anything about this. Some people calling us.
So you don't like the term African American? You prefer Black American?
It doesn't have anything to do with whether I like the term or not. I'm trying to get down to the truth.
Well, I mean,
this is all about the words.
Okay, well, just go with Black American. If that makes it easy for you, go with Black American, and then we can go with the debate, because this has taken a lot of time over
For
like one word.
slavery? Are we talking about again because I'm telling you now, I didn't prepare for slavery. Well, you know what?
Everything that I sent you was about slavery.
I got you told me to get my sources. I got 10 sources. So we're gonna start with we're gonna I heard you mention 40 acres and a mule. Okay.
Well,
so when you went from this 40 acres and a mule, was that supposed to be reparations for Black people, for victims of white supremacy? I prefer to call myself and Black people as victims of white supremacy. I think that's the best term to use. That's what I self-identify as, and that's what I self-identify them as, is victims of white supremacy. So, and I think that would bring it more to the truth as to what we're looking at here, because slavery, like you said, people all over the world have been slaves at some point in time, right?
So this is why I specified with the debate.
How many people have been slaves based on skin color, based on the mistreatment of their skin? Like really somebody just saying, hey, you know what? Because these people have this skin color, they're meant to be enslaved. They are genetically inferior, and they need to be enslaved. Is that something that
it has
the
happened.
Arabs did to white people when they enslaved white people?
Yes. So there was a racial hierarchy when you look at the Arab slave trade of white people, Ottoman slave trade of white people. There's a racial hierarchy. Arabs called themselves white. They saw themselves as superior. The Europeans they referred to as red, which were inferior. So there was a racial hierarchy there. Usually, in order to genocide, to enslave a people, you must demonize them first. The same thing happened with the Anglos' demonization of the Irish. They saw the Irish
still white,
as
right?
No, not according to them.
You said the Arabs. You said the Arabs classified themselves as white.
Yeah, and they classified Europeans as red, which they'd seen as inferior.
Okay, but the common denominator here is white.
No.
Right?
No.
That's the common denominator. They're white. The Arabs were white.
The Arabs saw the Europeans as a different race, as an inferior race. And on that basis, there was help to justify the enslavement of them, of us.
We're still looking at somebody saying that they're a white person. We're still looking at a group of people
the category
at the top because they're
white. The category for Persians, for Europeans, was red. It wasn't white. The Arabs referred to themselves as white. I can bring up. Yeah. I've got another source.
Okay, I'm still looking at white people here. We're still talking about white people.
I don't consider Arabs white. Do you consider Arabs white?
From my observation, some Arabs are white and some Arabs are non-white.
I don't consider them white. So
okay, well, I've talked to some Arabs. I've asked them the question, and some Arabs have told me they're non-white. Some Arabs have told me they're white. So. And the same thing with Jews.
But regardless, even if they
the same thing with Asians, I've asked them all. There's white people and non-white people amongst all of them.
But what I'm saying is the Arabs back in those days, the more pure Arabs, because obviously when you have 10 million white, the more pure Arabs. So when you have 10 million white Arabs. No, not pure white, pure brown ones. So when you have 10 million white Europeans enslaved over hundreds of years as sex slaves.
This is what I mean about the confusion, sir. When I say I'm still learning, okay, you said that they were white and they saw.
No, I didn't say they were white.
As red.
They declared themselves as white.
They enslaved the Europeans because they were red. You said the Arabs said that they were white. They thought they were superior because they were white. And they enslaved Europeans because they were red. And then you're telling me Arabs are brown now. So, okay, so can we agree that there are brown Arabs and white Arabs then?
No, what you're misunderstanding is the Arabs of today that call themselves white, they probably are majority white. And that's no surprise when you have millions, tens of millions of white Europeans used as sex slaves, as porcupines, and you breed with the Arabs for millennia, obviously you're going to have more and more white offspring. There's tons of Arabs that are mixed race, like mostly white actually, because of the sex slavery of Europeans.
So is white a race? Wait, what? So is being white genetic?
So it depends. Race is ambiguous. Race, you can define race as narrow or as broad as you want to make it. You can draw a line around Ireland and be like the Irish race, the Celtic race. You can go out further and you can be like the Northern European race. You can go out further and say the European race. You can go out and say the Eurasian race. It's as broad or as narrow as you want to make it. Back in those days, Arabs considered themselves white and they considered Europeans red. Today, most Europeans consider themselves white and they consider Arabs to be brown or non-white. So, these terminologies aren't set in stone. Back in the day, Indians used to be considered black, the same category as black Africans were by the Arabs also. In Russia, if you have dark hair, if you're a Chechenian person in Russia, you're considered black. These terms they're not solid. They're not solidified. In Thailand, for instance, Arabs and Indians are considered the same race. They have a term for it. I forget the name of it. It starts with a K, but they're considered the same here. So race, these categories are extremely ambiguous. They're not set in stone. That's my point. But
in all of those words that you just gave me, right? Mm-hmm. All of those groups of people, they all put a white person on the top. They all said, look, we're white at some point in time, and you're not. And the people that were not white were put on the bottom, right? They were
I wouldn't say that at all. No.
Okay. Well, see, all of that is just here's the thing, right? For me, the tools for practicing racism that I've observed, at least the number one tool for practicing racism is deception. Okay, and I want to get down to the truth. I want to get down to the bottom line thing, right? We got ambiguity, right? Which is what does that mean?
Ambiguity means that it's not concrete. It's not a set in stone
so it's not,
situation.
It's not.
Let me say it like this: the Irish and Italians at some point in time in American history weren't considered white, and then they got included in the umbrella of white over time. So race can actually change in time and place depending on what I'm saying.
I've seen it happen, but everybody that process has happened to except people who look like me. People who look like me. I've been here. My descendants have been here. We've had Italians and Irish and Germans and Norwegians and Dutch and French, all who have Mexicans. Asians who come here, right? And at some point in time gotten the ability to classify themselves as white. And at the same time, the one that looks like this, still remains in the position of not being able to classify themselves as white. I could say I'm white, but someone like yourself would do like you do when you say about the white Arabs. You said you don't consider a white Arab or Arab as white, even though they
depends.
Consider themselves white.
If an Arab has like 90% European ancestry, sure, they're white. But I'm not just going.
How many?
So
how much
the way? So I think that whatever majority you are in an ancestral sense, like if you're 90% African, you're 90% European, you're 90% East Asian, whatever you are in that sense is your race. It doesn't matter if you're 10% mixed, but that's how I view race anyway.
Do you know that there are white people who, when I went to my, I had a Tai Chi class. Went to a Tai Chi class, and in my Tai Chi class, at the end of the class, this guy comes up to me and he tells me he's white. I said, yeah, okay,
A Chinese guy.
But
Who? What was he, like an East Asian, a Chinese man, or what?
I don't know. I don't think he was Chinese. I don't think he was.
Did he look like a European, or did he look like a Korean, a Chinese?
He looked like you. He kind of had facial features as yourself there. But he was a much older version. And he said to me that he just found out through ancestry.com doing a DNA test that he was 12% Nigerian. And he said that made him black.
That's my point. That's what
I did. I did a 23andMe DNA test. It says I'm 13% European.
Okay, that's my point.
I'm white like he does. Can I say
That was one of my points in the debate that we're meant to have about should Black Americans, should African Americans get reparations for slavery. One of my points is that millions of white Americans, people who consider themselves white, have a significant amount or a decent amount of African ancestry that comes from slavery. So should these people get reparations?
Well,
I feel
guess
like
what?
we're pivoting off the
I'm
main. Hang on,
gonna
Dr.
go
Syn-Q.
far out on the line
Pivot.
and tell you that they are.
We're pivoting
Reparations
off the actual conversation. So if you just want to have a free
reparations is
flowing
going to
conversation,
happen here. Reparations is going to happen, and you know who's going to get most of those reparations are the people you're talking about that you just mentioned. A lot of those white people who are there's some who out there who are they're coming out the woodwork with being Black now. Okay, but when if we go 20, 30, 40 years ago, that wasn't the case. Okay, but right now, that's probably when the reparations come through, that's probably who's going to get most of it. Just like with the I seen you. What do you think about well, I know it's off point, but I'll toss it out there with affirmative action. When affirmative action happened, you know who benefited most from affirmative action? White women. White women benefited most from affirmative action more than anybody else because they were included as a minority. When in truth, they're really a majority. They're not
really
a minority at all. But
let me interrupt for 1 second, Dr. Syn-Q. I just need to duck off for a moment. So anyone that wants to join the panel, I just posted the StreamYards link. Click on the StreamYards link. I'll invite you up. You can speak. We'll have a panel. I think we're allowed up to 6 people. And I'm going to dip off for a second. So Ron, if you're there, I know Ron, come up. Anyone who wants to, just when you come up, make sure you're polite. Make sure you don't break YouTube's terms and conditions when it comes to hate speech. Don't use slurs. And then we can have an open flowing conversation. I'll be back in about 5 minutes, but I'll make sure some guests come up here in the meantime. So Dr. Syn-Q, sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to continue what you're saying? Anyone that wants to join the live stream, then just click on this link. I'll post it again, and I'll invite you. Go ahead, Dr. Syn-Q.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to read.
Fuck me, Dr. Davinsky. Fuck me, Daddy.
Oh, fuck.
Fuck me.
Okay.
That's one of those.
Oh shit.
Yeah, my
Rod, if you're there, join the stream. Okay, sorry, go
on. So I just want to say that the 40 acres and a mule thing, because I don't know if you ever knew this or not, but most Black people never got that. They never got the 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the ones that did, it was taken back from them and given back to the slave owners. But the document that made that, which was HR 613, and it says, oh wait, I know what I wanted to ask you. Are you familiar with the term called man, how you say that? Let's see. I want to make sure I pronounce it correct. Epigenetics?
Yes, I am familiar. I don't think that epigenetics is usually how people think of it. So you can give me your take. But
okay.
Epigenetics.
Let's just look at it. I'll just cite the source that talks about epigenetics, and it says there's like 3 groups that it applies to. Three groups that appear to be I think they're groups that would be classified as white, but you could probably tell me if they're not, but it says basically it's the idea that a person's experience could alter their biology.
One second. Ron, mute your mic for a sec. You're echoing, and then you can jump in. Go on. The definition of epigenetics.
It says basically that a person's experience could alter their biology and the behavior of their offspring for generations into eternity. Okay, and they noted this is a a deep study. Just apparently there's lots of evidence, and they base this on, it says differences among I put differences among groups of white people who had gone through extreme physical and psychological stress, right? And the groups that they're basing these experiences off of is Holocaust survivors, the Dutch hunger winter. Oh, somebody's taking a pee-pee. And then
You
you
hear
have
that?
the Confederate
I thought
prisoner
I
of
was
war
muted.
soldiers. You have the Confederate prisoners of war soldiers. So now I'm suspecting that um, whoever wrote this article was definitely um, it seems like there's some kind of deception there, because it says like I said, you got three groups of people, of white people, that they mentioned: the Dutch hunger winter survivors, the Holocaust survivors, the offspring. We're talking about the children of the Holocaust survivors, the children of the Dutch hunger winter, and then the children of the Confederate prisoners of war soldiers, who basically have their behavior has been altered because of the experiences that they went through. These extreme physical and psychological stress experiences that they've gone through. Now, going through this, they skipped right over black people. They skipped right over black people when it comes to epigenetics, but they do go to the Confederate prisoners of war. They go to the soldiers who were fighting to continue to keep black people into slavery. Get recognized, that the offspring of them, they get recognized as being able to have this epigenetics, but there's no mention of black people. But for me, I believe that these are reasons to justify getting reparations, and not just reparations, but reparations. This what's being presented as reparations is just really a small part of what actual reparations is. Okay, what they should be using is compensation. That's what we should be talking about, and we should be talking about compensating for
Fuck
the
me, daddy.
injustice.
Fuck me. Fuck me. I
That's
am all.
what we should be considering. We should be looking at. Um,
Yeah, I agree with what you've said there. That's why I think the argument is stronger for reparations in general. If you're going to make the race-based argument, but like black people or African Americans, whatever you want to call them, yeah, reparations.
Victims of white supremacy.
It's easier to make the claim that they should get reparations for discrimination than reparations for slavery, because it's difficult. A lot of people like to they like to do the analogy with the Jews. The Jews got reparations, like black Americans get reparations for slavery, but there's a difference there, because the Jews lived through that. The Jews that got reparations for the Holocaust, they were survivors. They survived, and they were actually victimized as that. It's not the same as claiming reparations for the victimization of your ancestors.
The reparations that Jewish survivors get, it doesn't just go to them, it also goes to their offspring. Their offspring, the offspring of Jewish survivors, receive reparations as well.
Yeah, I don't think that unless you actually face the I guess the atrocity in question, I don't think that you should get reparations. I think that because if you did that, you open up the can of worms that everyone has ancestors that were victimized in some way, right? Like whether that was child labor laws. You look back at the early 1900s,
That is
you see
true.
like 10-year-olds smoking cigarettes, like working in chimneys in factories with asbestos. I think that you can only claim reparations for things that you personally went through, or at most maybe your parents. So go on, Ron.
I actually agree, because I think that I think even half, like 50% of Europeanish white people have some percentage of this African DNA, this black DNA. So can
Yep.
they now claim reparations? Like, how do we
Well,
decide who's black and who's not? How
well,
do
if
we
you listen to
decide
my
that
introduction,
was
I
bad
went through that.
slaves?
It's interesting you bring that up because if you listen to my introduction, there's a study that was reported on by Vox, and they found that about 10 to 15% of white Southerners, people who consider themselves white, have African ancestry from slavery. Do those people get reparations?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because those are their ancestors. Those are their
Exactly.
and like I agree with another point you made. I mean, like, are Mexicans gonna start claiming reparations for like the fucking Aztecs, the murderers of the Mexicans, like like the land getting tucked? Like, are they gonna
Before
start claiming
before you
reparations?
continue, Ron, I think give yourself a little bit of an introduction. Ron's actually a good friend of mine. He has a Discord. Just so Dr. Syn-Q is familiar with you and maybe
Oh yeah,
some of
yeah,
your
yeah.
views.
I'm Dr. Ron. I'm Christian. I have a lot of Christian views. I'm more on the right. I own a Discord server with about like 300 people. We talk about a lot of topics in there, mainly religion, sometimes politics. And we have Davinsky over there a lot of times. We also have Dr. Umar Johnson in the server, which is a Pan Africanist. We actually have Dr. Umar, and we have another one that's similar to him. So it'll be awesome having you in there too, if you ever mind joining.
Yeah, that's a nice little introduction. I'll add
Oh,
your Discord to the into the description anyway. So, Dr. Syn-Q, what do you think of what Ron said?
yeah, that's fine. Send me an invite. I'm still learning about this whole Discord thing, but yeah, we could try to do that. I just, I want to get down to the bottom. I want to get down to the point. I don't want to go around in circles, um, just wasting time. I just really like I said when I came here, um, my point was to I believe that every person on this planet that is classified as non-white deserves reparations. Every person on this planet that is classified as non-white is considered to me to be a victim of racism, white supremacy.
I
Who
think
do we
that
get
you're
reparations
romanticizing
from? We get
you
reparations from the racist white supremacists.
like you're
How do I see the planet? I don't,
Diversity,
to
can you
get
stop
cut past all
interrupting?
the confusion of who's Mexican and Japanese and Chinese and Asian and Hispanic and whatever. I use three. I look at three, the world divided up into three types of people: the racist white supremacists, white people, and non-white people. That's how I see it. The racist white supremacists are the smartest and most powerful of white people on this planet.
can I just add on to what you said?
Dr.
What's
Davinsky,
your
I'm really sorry to interrupt. Could you block that troll in the chat, because that's the reason I came up, because
What's
they're
his name?
imitating me. No, okay. So
You-
do you see the? Hold on, let me sort this out. Oh my days, this is annoying.
Yeah, he
Okay, so
came
if
from
you go in the
Ron.
comments and someone's
Yeah, what's his
pretending
name?
to be me.
Oh, okay, your
Hello?
feet smell like paradise. Is that the one?
Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I see him.
Hold on,
Blocked
hold on. Let me
user.
go in the comments. I'm really sorry about this, guys. I hate trolls to death, Hold on a second. Okay, so you know the one who's saying we're here to troll you, Davinsky, or something like that? Hold on,
Yeah.
where is it?
I think I blocked him.
Did you?
I blocked him.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
blocked him.
Because I just wanted to make sure you didn't block the wrong account, because me, I would never troll. Like, some people have no lives. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, carry on. Yeah, do your thing, innit? All right, peace.
Hey, cheers, man. Ron, do you want to touch on anything? What I'll say to Dr. Syn-Q is you're romanticizing non-whites as one collective group. So, like, there's never been like
wait,
non-whites.
romanticizing? What does that mean?
That means that you're kind of acting as if non-whites have a history where they have a collective struggle against white people, when really the history of the world has been conquer and be conquered. East Asians even had black slaves. They had, like, the Mongols basically killed off 15% of the world's population during their rule. Like this whole idea
Okay.
that like
But
non-whites got along is completely
who's had the
ridiculous.
who's done the most conquering? The Mongols or the British?
Well, at the same time, the British, you could argue, conquered in a more humane way. The
A
Mongols went in and
humane
basically
way. Wait a
killed
minute.
everyone.
Whoa. Why are we using the word? What does humane mean?
Well, if you look at how the Mongols went in, so
Uh-huh.
when they went into Persian cities, there was one city that had 1 million inhabitants. They killed off everyone in that city in a few days. The streets ran like up to like knee height with blood. I mean, that's
Okay.
obviously a bit of a analogy,
Okay.
a bit of a metaphor, but
Okay.
massacres.
Can the Mongols top an atomic bomb being dropped on Japan? Can they top
do you
that?
know, dude? What
Not just one atomic bomb, two atomic bombs.
the Japanese
dropped.
viewed themselves as a superior race during that time in World War II. The
Oh, well,
Japanese,
it looked like to me they just viewed themselves as being superior to white people, or actually maybe even being equal to white people, and the white people who were in power at the time just didn't like that. I could be incorrect. I'm just a victim of white supremacy. I'm still learning about this whole thing. But what I am
dude,
saying is, I do
Japan's
know
history is
that
super
some white people
racist.
dropped some bombs on some non-white people, and that knocks the whole little Mongol thing that you're telling me about out the box. That just really just kind of throws that out. And
I would say that was morally
combined with the
justified,
French,
though.
when you combine what the French has done, the white supremacists who are French, not all white people, only the ones who are practicing racism. Okay, you know about them dividing up the planet. You know how they pick and choose. You got the. I mean, who do we have here? We got the Dutch, we got the French, we got the British, we got the Spanish, and we have the Portuguese. All five of them were involved in conquering the whole planet and establishing establishing and expanding white supremacy all over the planet.
So what the Europeans did was what other empires have tried to do. The Europeans were just more successful at it. I mean,
why?
they did.
Well, wait. They were more successful at it, and I can agree with that the racist white supremacists were more successful at it because they are masters of deception and they're masters of violence. No, the Mongols didn't come up with no non-white person invented the atomic bomb. Nobody. No non-white person invented the what is it, the 50 megaton bomb. I mean, they got 100 megaton now. I don't know.
Let me jump on the Japanese bombing. Okay, let me just touch on one issue at a time. So the Japanese bombing, or the American bombing of Japan, was morally justified because during that time, you know, the Japanese were genociding Koreans, the Chinese, like tens of millions of people were genocided by the Japanese Imperial Army. And so what happened was, a couple 100,000 Japanese died, but that ended the war. Millions of other people would have lost their lives to the Japanese if it wasn't for that bombing. I think that the ends justified the means in that instance.
I was told that the Japanese surrendered before the atomic bombs were dropped.
So what I was told too is that there was talks of a surrender, but it wasn't. So it was still in the process of actually surrendering. But during that time, like leading up to the bombings,
so basically,
the Japanese had already
saying,
committed.
Hey, I'm going to surrender, but you got to be like, okay, well, wait a minute, we have to talk about it.
Okay, after this debate, I want you to just type into Google Japanese war crimes World War II, and you'll just see how ruthless and savage they were and how they viewed even other Asians as inferior races.
Can we type in United States war crimes? Can we type in British war crimes?
French hang on, this
crimes,
kind of
Portuguese war crimes. I mean, I think it was a great crime to kidnap people and put them on ships. I think it was a great crime to
let's stick.
Force people,
Dr. Syn-Q. Let's stick on one topic. Can we stick on World War II?
Spanish. They have to think, speak, and behave in the manner that a racist white supremacist who wanted them to speak Spanish and English and French. They had that to me is more devastating than anything else on this planet.
Dr.
You
Syn-Q.
can
So
go all over anywhere,
hang on.
right there in Thailand where you're at. Are there white people and non-white people in Thailand?
So Thailand's got an interesting history. Actually, it was one of
What's the official language of Thailand?
You're asking me like several questions at once. Let's just slow down a little bit. So Thailand is one of like 5 countries that has never been colonized by a Western power, which is kind of cool when you think about it. But let's stick on one topic. I want to stick on World War II for a moment, okay?
What's the official language in Thailand?
Thai.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Thailand was never colonized. And the thing that I like about Thailand is because they don't have this history of colonization by the West, they don't have any hatred or resentment towards white Europeans because they don't have, I guess, an inferiority complex because they're proud that they've never been colonized, which is kind of interesting.
An inferiority complex.
Yeah, a lot of ex-colonial nations, they tend to, obviously not like white people because of the history. But I don't even think that's fair. So what I'd say is like just saying that like singling out white people, most of Europe, like half of Europe actually, never colonized. They never had empires. Like it's about what, like half a dozen countries that did most of the colonization. I'm Irish and Hungarian. My people never colonized any parts of Africa, any parts of Latin America. Like my people were colonized, faced genocide, slavery.
Whether you're Irish, Hungarian, black, whatever you are, if you can go any place on this planet and call yourself a white person and be accepted as a white person, you're a white person. It doesn't matter. You can be.
That's not always a good thing, though.
We just got through looking at you yourself already said Charlize Theron. Elon Musk. Elon Musk, technically speaking, is an African American, right? But is Elon Musk a white person?
Sure. Those aren't mutually exclusive. I was kind of jokey when I said that.
I know you were colloquially. There's kind of a truth to it, just like most jokes. There's kind of a truth to it.
But usually when we refer to African Americans, we're talking about black Americans, like black Africans, right?
So says white people. That's what white people say, right?
I mean, that's just how generally like people would like. I don't know. I think you kind of
generally the white people make the decision, and non-white people just accept it.
1 second.
That's usually what happens. That's what I've seen over in my few 50 years that I've been on this planet.
So I want to touch.
I remember when I was brought into the world, and the first time I was old enough to read, and I looked at my birth certificate. It says Negro on it. I said Negro. Okay. My folks told me my now ancestors, told me at the time that they were called colored when they were growing up, and I remember some white people calling me colored. Some older white people referring to me as the little colored boy. So I'm like, okay, Negro, colored, and then they're telling me I'm black. It was being.
But the reason that these terms
my dad is
change
telling
is because
me. My dad is telling me my attempted parent is trying to, I guess, help me get over that inferiority complex that you just mentioned, and by trying to tell me that I needed to know my history. So and then by knowing my own history, he said we were Africans. So I'm like, okay, well, damn, we're Africans, we're Negroes, we're coloreds, we're black. Why? Why do we go through all of these identity changes when we're the ones that are supposed to have control of our identities? And now we got foundational Black Americans, we got Hebrew Israelite, we got all these different terms, Moors, whatever. It seems to me that we're confused about who the hell we are. That's what it seems like to me.
This is what this happens with any group, though. Like you take any group of people, and they have a bunch of different terms that they used to be called and used to identify with.
What other group has
all of
this
these terms
happened
are
to?
coming from white people, though.
Davinsky.
All of these terms,
so
Latinos and Hispanics get together and say we're going to call ourselves Latinos and Hispanics.
Dr. Syn-Q, we need to have a one mic policy. So like we're gonna have to take it turn by turn because you are gish galloping a little bit. Like you are making points, obviously, but you're over talking. So who asked me what other group has had these
This ad
terms?
Mac. This is Mac.
Okay.
But
So one group I'd say is Native Americans. Previously, they were referred to as Indian Americans or Native Indians, and some of them people still like that term. Some people find it offensive. Some people find Native offensive. This is why terms change, is because people like either find it appropriate or they don't, or like it changes in time. I was watching a really good series on Native Americans recently, and this guy went to about 50 different reservations, and he was asking like different groups, is Native American offensive, is Indian offensive, and he always got different answers depending on who he spoke to, which part of the country he was in. So like you can never really like appease everyone. That's why you got to look at intent. And if someone's saying something like without malice, then I think that should be what's looked at, not whether a word you might find offensive or whatever. It's like whether they meant it as that.
it's crazy how you mentioned the Native Americans, because in history it's always shown that a lot of African Americans or the black slaves actually integrated with Native Americans, and they had a lot of children. So a
You
lot of
know,
these African Americans that you're talking about could
yeah.
also be Native American too.
Yeah, sure. And there's a long history as well with Irish,
Am I on
like
mute?
Irish all around
Yeah,
the
I'm on
world
mute
with
now.
Africans from like the Caribbean. So if you listen to Jamaican sounds very similar to Irish in terms of accent and slang. It's because 40% of the Caribbean at one point in time were Irish indentured servants, which I would call slaves. So like there is a long history of. So this is why I think it's kind of ridiculous when Dr. Syn-Q will basically say non-whites and then whites, as if like we all have the same history when we don't. Like Japanese during the World War II, they saw themselves as a superior race. They caused genocide. They basically dehumanized Koreans and Chinese to the point of like they wanted to exterminate them. So like I don't understand why he thinks that colonization and genocide and all of these
Yeah,
evil things are just like uniquely European. They're
I
not.
I think reparations should be more specifically to bloodline than it is a color of your skin. Like if your bloodline was a slave to this plantation, then this family should pay to the family of all the
Am I
slaves that were
recording?
on this plantation, because it's all about, I think it's about bloodline more than it is about skin color. There's a lot of Africans who came here after that can say that, oh, I want reparations, but they weren't, their families wasn't here during slavery or stuff like that. So when it comes to reparations, it should go to the
I,
actual
I,
families that were here the entire time.
how would that like work out in theory though? Like let's say that you have, because like if you
All
go
you gotta
back
do is
10
show proof that your
just,
family was here. There's
just give
documents
just
going.
just give
Yeah,
me a second. So if you go back like I don't know, like 5 generations to 10 generations,
I'm
you
still on
quickly
mute.
double. So like if you go back 1 generation, you have 4 ancestors, right? Sorry, 2. You got your parents. Then you go back another generation, you have 4. You got grandparents from either side. Then you go back again, you got 8. It doubles. So quickly after like 10 generations, you can have like thousands of ancestors. What if one of those was a slave, but most of them weren't? It's really difficult to be like what percentage, because we all have ancestry that were slaves, basically.
I mean, everyone knows simple math. We can figure out a percentage to give and how much you can give to each descendant of that slave. It's not that hard. They can do it.
What I
You're
would
acting
what
like it's
I
difficult. It's not difficult.
what I would suggest is a class-based system of reparations. So people that are poor, which are disproportionately black people and Hispanics anyway, if you had a reparation systems that were like, okay, everyone who has less than $5,000, they get 100 grand or whatever number you want to figure, and that would get everyone on board because like poor Mexicans, poor white people, poor Japanese Americans, whatever, they would all be inclined to be like, okay, I can benefit from this. But when you just want to help black people, then the majority of Americans have no real interest in doing into like voting or supporting that because it's not going to benefit them. So what I'd say is that like if you wanted to do a class-based system, it would in theory benefit black people more than others anyway. So it would have a racial element without having the actual racial element.
Am I still on mute?
No, he can hear you.
Dr. Davinsky, could you sorry, could you take off that comment again? It was that fake guy. Sorry, just let you know.
Which one?
It's on the screen and everyone assumes it's me. Some people are gonna assume that's me, but that's not. Some stupid troll. Hey guys, I do apologize. I'm not trying to interrupt anything. It's just
MC, if you like comment, I can make you a moderator and then you can just ban him as he comes, I'm pretty sure.
Oh no, you've already banned it. It's on your screen right now. Like,
oh shit, sorry.
Yeah, thank
my
you.
bad.
It's because people are gonna assume. But yeah. Carry on. Do you think?
Sorry, Dr. Syn-Q, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so again, I just want to say that it's all about the words we use. I'm not offended here at all by any of the terms that are being used. I'm just questioning them. And I believe that the smartest, the most powerful white people on the planet, not all the white people, just the ones who are smart and extremely powerful, and maybe not even all of them. I don't know. But I know that someone or a group of someones out there are powerful enough to toss these terms out there at us. Okay. The Indians didn't choose or take a vote to call themselves Indians. At least the ones here, we all know, you know, you can do the research on that. You know that the people who are indigenous to this North American continent or South America, the whole Western Hemisphere, who are indigenous to this side of the world, were named Indians by Christopher Columbus. That's you know, that you don't have to Google that. I'm sure everybody knows that, right? But then somebody else gave them Native American. They're not the ones who said that. And I don't even know if they're the ones who came up with calling themselves indigenous. All I know is,
just add on to that? So when it comes to labels and what people like to be called, you're never going to appease everyone, right? There's always going to be people that like it and people that dislike it.
I'm not talking about appeasing anybody. I'm talking about keeping people confused and divided. That's what
don't you think that Native American or indigenous is less confusing than like Indian, obviously?
Well, if one person wants to be Indian and the other person wants to be Native American and the other person wants to be indigenous, but in truth, the individual that says that they're Native American, indigenous, or Indian is a white person, or in truth, the person that says that they're Native American, Indian, or indigenous is a non-white person, we have a problem. Because
are you talking about like Native Americans that like claim to be Native American, but they're like mostly white, like Johnny Depp? Like there's a lot of white people.
I'm not saying they're mostly white. I'm saying that some of them are. I'm saying that there are white people. I'm trying to say that just like in a you know how to play poker?
No, I want to learn though.
Okay, I don't know how to play it either, but I to my understanding, in poker or in card games, or you know, when they're playing the card games, that there is a particular card that has it's like the most powerful card in the deck, right? So what I'm saying to you is that amongst indigenous, Indian, and Native American people, there are white people and there are non-white people. And some of those white people are mistreating the non-white people on the basis of color. And I'm saying that same thing in Africa, so-called Africa, same thing in Europe, the whole damn planet.
Let me just clarify.
You're going to find some white people who are mistreating non-white people on the basis of color, and it's because it's already been established.
Hold on, I have something to say, because you said something earlier about the namings of like the Native American. Yeah, it's AdMac.
And after AdMac, I just want to hear from MC Chiem, because we've had a discussion personally about racial categories and what's a good category for like different groups and stuff. Okay. So I'd be interested in his take if he has any.
Cool. So if you look at all these names of all these states and all these cities, these names actually come from Native American tribes. When you talk about Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi. These are all Native American names, and so I just wanted to point out that fact. So like those Native American names are still here today, basically. And I didn't know if he was aware of that, but basically that's what I want to point out.
Who
Yeah, you're
decided
right.
who decided to take a vote and name the state of Tennessee Tennessee? Was it the
Well,
Native Americans? Were
well,
they non-white Native Americans or
I don't
white?
know who I don't know who is the one who named like gave it the official name these states, but I know that they come from Native American because those are the types of that's the type of language they spoke, right? That's
Okay,
the
Are you
type
well,
of
saying?
way
Hey,
dialect.
are you
the
Yeah.
saying
English
that?
language is filled with languages. It's filled with words that come from other languages.
Yeah,
That's
but these
why
states are obviously Native American type names. Like
Admac, are you saying
yeah.
that every U.S. state is named after a Native American like word or something?
Damn
no,
near everyone,
it's
damn near
definitely not.
everyone, almost every single state.
Because I know the
So
reservations. So because I was watching,
those,
his name's Peter Sanitano or something. He's an Italian American, and he did a series
Mhm.
recently where he goes around to like all the Native American reservations, like 50 of them, like a lot of them. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting because they have certain names for the reservation. Like there's one called Flathead Reservation, and that was
Mhm.
actually a racist derogatory term because like the settlers thought they had flat faces, and then so but they kind of some of them embrace the term as well. It's a weird thing when you come to categories and labels because some people like them, some people don't, and that was my point earlier is that we can try and have labels that people like, but you're never going to appease everyone, and then in time maybe people don't like them. You know, that's what happens with terms, and that's why things like that were previously PC they're no longer PC. But go on.
well,
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you
Uh,
go.
I was just going to say that I'm trying to follow this from a position of logic. I'm not looking at emotions and how words make people feel. Um, I'm saying we need to get away from how words make us feel and get down to the bottom line of what's really going on here. Okay.
Mhm.
And I do believe that every single non-white person on this planet needs to be compensated. Reparations is just a part of that compensation. They need to be compensated for the injustice that has happened to them.
And what if
Now,
they don't want to give it? Then
there's
what?
white people mistreat.
What if they don't want to give the reparations? Then what?
Um, if they don't want to give the reparations, then we need to keep hollering and screaming until they do. You know,
That's
the
I don't feel
bottom
like that's
line,
gonna make them do it
main,
because
the
we've been
main
doing that for a while.
reparation, the main reparation that we deserve is justice. That's the main reparation that we deserve. Okay, the planet is out of balance, and the people who control the planet need to restore balance. We probably have always been out of balance, but I think that the ultimate objective should be for us to establish a true system of justice that in which every single person on the planet is guaranteed not to be mistreated. Okay, I
can
know
I
that
ask you
sounds
a question,
impossible,
Dr.
but
Syn-Q?
just remember it used to be impossible. People used to think it was impossible when they were first talking about light bulbs and planes and shit. All that kind of stuff used to be impossible too. But go
I
ahead.
just so what I want to say is when it comes to like discrimination and like protected groups and I guess like just treating people with respect, like I've traveled a lot, and from what I've seen and I've read a lot, is that Western nations, majority white nations, tend to be the most proactive in terms of like protecting people, racial equality, sexual equality, all of these things. Like in Thailand, for instance, I was up north recently, and there's this group of people, and they're called the Long Neck Tribe, right? And this is a derogatory term; it's not actually a nice term. And on the side of the road, you're driving along, and there was a sign of this like caricature of this person, the Long Neck Tribe, it said, and it was a racist picture, and it was like 5 kilometers off there. It was basically a tourist attraction, telling people to go and like just gaze at these like what I'd say are like these oddities. But and so you go there, and like the equivalent would be basically saying
Yeah,
a
so that's how
racist
that's
term
what
for
it was.
black people, and then you have a stereotypical picture of a black person like 5 kilometers off the highway, and then you go to some hood. Like that's what it's like, dude. It's like, so
Okay,
like,
can I ask a
go,
question, Mr.
yeah.
Davinsky? Do you believe in the concept of justice that was just stated by Dr. Syn-Q?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Say that again.
Do you believe in the definition of justice that was just stated by Dr. Syn-Q?
Uh, I kind of missed the definition. Could you
He's
repeat it?
basically
Okay.
saying, do you agree with Doctor?
No, okay, no, no. I'm gonna say the definition again. Justice, guaranteeing no one is mistreated, no one is allowed to be mistreated, and the people who need help the most receive constructive help. Dr. Syn-Q stated that
You
no one
cut
is
out the
allowed.
last half of that definition.
You kind of
Sorry,
sound far
Syn-Q.
away.
Syn-Q, can you restate the definition, please?
Yeah, my definition of justice is that it's a system in which no one, it's a system that guarantees that no person on this planet is mistreated for any reason.
Yeah, I
But
think that's a good definition.
that's what they claim they're doing now. Anyway, they claim that they're,
Who
we have the
claims that?
justice system, we have the legal
Yeah,
system,
well,
and
right. But so the they that you're talking about, those are the people who are masters of deception. Of course, they're going to call a system of injustice justice, to make us believe we're getting something.
so
But
do you believe that we're still at war or no? Because obviously they're not
absolutely,
just
it's a race war. It's a
yeah.
huge
Yeah,
race war
and
going
we
on.
are not at war. Whoever the gentleman is talking, the white supremacists are waging a war against non-white people, and non-white people are totally confused about this reality.
Exactly.
So yes, there's a war taking place, a war operated and maintained by white people who believe in the system of white supremacy racism. That's what's going on here.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be all white people. We ain't saying all white people. Like I said before, in which I wanted to ask Davinsky, because I said, I see the world divided up into 3 types of people: racist white supremacists, white people, and non-white people.
So who are these racist white supremacists? Like, do they have names? Do you know who they are?
I don't. Still looking for them.
So how do we know they're even white? What if
That's an
they're not
excellent
even?
question.
How do I know that they're white? I know
Yeah.
that they're white because I see all of the things that white people are able to do that non-white people are not able to do.
Yeah, but that don't
Such
mean
such as
that don't
what
mean they're
though?
white. There could be black people who just don't like their own race that are up there and not showing them their faces.
It could be black people,
It could be a goddamn alien or reptilian or whatever they call them. It could
could
be
be an
anything.
alien. Well, from my observation, that's exactly what they want you to think. Okay, as long as you're thinking about aliens and other non-white people running the planet, then everything's a-okay. Okay, but what I've seen, what I've witnessed over the years that I've been on the planet, I've witnessed non-white people all over this planet attempting to uh, uh, it seems to me like they are fighting against white supremacy. They're doing what they can to just get compensation. Like when you think about, when I think about compensation, I think about um like how light compensates for dark, right? If I'm in a dark room and I need to see, I need some light to help me see. That light is compensating for dark,
Dr.
right?
Syn-Q, I got a question for you. Like, so let me just so during the Second World War, Germany was trying to basically make world domination with Japan, and they both saw themselves as the master race. And then the Allied forces, so like America, Britain, Australia, they fought against this notion that the Aryan race were. How do you fit that into your worldview? Because the one chance that there was for global white supremacy with Germany, other white nations fought against it.
Okay, so I'm still learning about the World War II thing, but one thing that I have definitely seen is that the whole idea that that Hitler acquired for his so-called master race thing, he got from the United States. He studied
But why did
eugenics.
the USA go to
Are
war with?
you familiar with eugenics?
Yeah, he did copy some of the racist policies of America's past. No one's denying that America
No,
was
he
racist in the
didn't copy it
past.
over America's past. He copied from what was currently going on in the United States at the same time.
Why? My
Margaret
question is, why
Sanger and
did?
all the other people that were running, that were a part of the eugenics movement, which was just nothing but people trying to collect evidence for to support their scientific racist beliefs.
But my question is if Hitler wanted to take over the world basically with the Japanese and have basically a white world, like a white supremacist regime globally, why would other majority white superpowers fight against that? It seems counterintuitive.
I'm suspecting that they disagreed over his method for practicing racism. Not that he was practicing racism, it was just his method. They didn't like the method. And
they didn't like the genocide of
hold on.
non-whites in Europe, or what?
There's a long history of white people fighting each other and still maintaining the system of white supremacy. That was nothing new. We see it right now with the Russian-Ukraine situation.
But wouldn't you say that was an explicit move for global white supremacy? And like, if there truly was a white supremacist like undertone for these white majority nations, why would white majority nations go against that? It doesn't make sense.
Hitler was trying to practice racism in his own way. Some racists wanted to practice racism, white supremacy in their own way.
Can I ask what your name is?
Well, Hitler
Hang on.
also blamed the
last guy. What's your name, just so I can refer to you?
05. It's right there. It's 0526.
05. Are you a fan of Dr Syn-Q?
I'm not a fan of anything. I am an associate of Dr Syn-Q.
Oh, so that's how you found this live stream, though, is through Dr Syn-Q?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, go on, AdMac.
Oh no, I was just saying Hitler and this kind of like leads to what we're actually talking about. But Hitler didn't like the Jews because of the world economic problem that was going on, and he blamed the Jews for it. And
that's the story. That's the story that's been told. But if you dig deeper, you'll find that Hitler actually worked with the Jews, certain Jews, to do what he was doing. So just look up the diaries of Theodor Herzl. His name is Theodor Herzl. He's the founder of the Zionist movement.
Yeah,
and you'll find the connection between Hitler, Theodor Herzl, and the British government when they first established when the British were in control of Palestine. They the first agreement they established with Hitler was to send Jews to Palestine because Theodor Herzl wanted to have his own homeland. He felt that this is a concept of Zionism. He thought that Jews should have their own homeland. So he had been working with the British since the late 1800s or something like that, or the early 1900s, somewhere around there, working with them to help them find a home. A so-called homeland for Jews. First, it was South Africa. They thought they might use South Africa, then they thought they might use Uganda, but they settled on Palestine. And this is way before Hitler started killing anybody.
And if you look at
I think that they were doing this because they needed the identities of some people. I'm still researching it. But
if you look at the Jews that actually died, it was more of the peasant class. Like a lot of the wealthy Jews escaped properly with like tons of money, but it was really like the peasantry that died from the Jews actually. So my grandfather's parents died in the Holocaust. He was Hungarian Jew, and so I know a little bit about the history there. But my point is that if there was a global system of white supremacy, which Hitler wanted with Mussolini and other European powers, why it doesn't make sense that other white majority nations would go against that.
Hitler and Mussolini's version of white supremacy, whatever it was that they wanted, the other powers disagreed with that. They didn't like his method.
On what basis, though, do you think? On what basis do you think the disagreement was?
the basis of the disagreement, again, I believe that that whole thing was designed to establish, was to give justification for establishing a homeland.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me. It all surrounds Zionism. It all
Yeah.
surrounds Zionism to me. Now,
Yeah.
Zionism, there's a lot of people that say Zionism is racism. So, the belief and idea, the concept that a Jew, a person because they're Jewish is a race, that Jews are a race of people, is a Zionist belief. That's a Zionist belief. Okay.
Well,
And
there's definitely a superiority thing
maybe
there.
that's what they I kind of suspect that that's what that was about when it came to Hitler. But I do know that before Hitler and after Hitler, the global there's these global Western nations have been practicing racism all over the planet.
Let me
Okay,
ask you
before
another
Hitler and
question
after.
then. So we can ignore the Hitler and the World War II, but let's look at now, right? So majority white nations, especially Western and Northern Europe and Australia, these developed nations, if you look at the demographics, white people are actually becoming minorities. So like, why would a white supremacist system want their native populations to become a minority? So London, for instance, like minority British, like white British now. Like, how do you justify that? That doesn't make sense.
Well, it looks to me that the whole reason for practicing white supremacy has been because white people have been the minority forever.
But
Ever
why would
since
you want to
ever since
become a
white people
minority
came
in
about
your?
on the planet, they've been the minority. The majority of the people on the planet are non-white people, and it looks to me that the reason that
You
racism,
could
white
say that for.
supremacy was
Hang on. You could say
established
that for.
was so that
You,
white people could remain here, as if
you could say that for anyone. You could say the minority of people on here are non-Chinese or non-black. You could say that for any group.
no, I can't.
Of course you can. Tell me one
Yeah,
group with the majority of people.
Well, what he's
the
trying to say
majority
is
of
that the
people on this
genetic.
planet are non-white people.
No,
The
okay, so
minority of the majority of everyone on Earth is a minority, right?
The majority is a minority. I'm
Yeah,
confused.
like take like the largest countries like China or India, for instance. Even those countries are still a minority. They're less than 50% of the world population.
Davinsky, what I was about to say is that they already know that the strongest gene is the black woman or the melanated woman. And so most of the time when you have kids with the black woman, most of her genes are prominent inside of the baby. Then it goes to
So
black man, then it goes to Hispanic woman, or you know what I'm saying, or
I
like
completely disagree.
It's
well
just
that
melanin.
is true.
Hang on, let me just tackle this for an instance. So when you take a two races and they have a kid and that kid's biracial, you get 50% of the genes from either parent. You get a little bit more of the DNA from the mother because there's something that happens with a tiny bit more genetic material comes from the mother, right? But generally speaking, it's 50-50. And from my experience, when I look at mixed race people, they tend to look in between both parents, especially when, let's say, that one parent's maybe like a quarter white and the other one's full white, then you get access to those recessive eye colors and hair colors. Then they can look very white. So this whole idea that like the black gene is dominant, it's not true. It's really not.
What is a race?
It is.
Hang on, MC, are you there? I'd like
I'm still
to.
here. Yeah.
Would you like to touch on the mixed race question?
What's the mixed race question?
So basically about the black gene being dominant and whether like mixed race people are
Oh,
black or like
okay.
maybe you can
Yeah.
mention your what is it?
Okay. So
What's the one that starts with M?
what Marone?
Yeah. So maybe
Marone. So
let MC
basically,
have the floor for a little bit.
okay. Well, where to begin? So when it comes to first gen biracials, by the way, I use the term first gen biracials so that people understand I'm talking about like a biracial person who has two different monoracial parents, right? For example, Barack Obama, he has two different monoracial parents, one black, one white. You know, so no, this idea of mixed people, first gen biracial people are black because the black gene is dominant is nonsense. Because I can
No,
clearly
well then
tell.
I'm
No, wait,
sorry.
just hear me out. Just
Hang
hear
on,
me out.
hang on.
Yeah,
Let
go ahead.
MC finish. Let MC like talk for a couple of minutes
No, at
because
the
he
end of the
hasn't said
day,
anything.
Barack Obama looks racially ambiguous. He does not look black. He doesn't look white either. And the reason why a lot of people, not all, but some people will say, especially in the United States, will say that he looks black is because people have this idea this brainwashed idea that, oh, black come in all shades, you know, all that, and that's not true. No one
Can
ever
I just
says.
to say what the thing with Obama is he tends to be a bit more on the darker side of mixed race people. So like even him though, he clearly looks mixed, but even then he's a little bit he's not typical mixed features in my opinion.
Who is a pure race?
Everybody's mixed. Y'all keep bringing up this
Hey, I'm
mixed
sorry,
thing.
I
Like,
interrupted the MC. Continue, MC. Sorry.
Yeah, so a lot of people have this mindset that, oh, you know, we come in all shades, and this is what skews people's perception of what black people, you know, actually look like, you know, what the typical black person is. So it's a bit weird when people say, oh, Barack Obama looks black. Like, no, he doesn't. He's mixed looking. Like, he looks in between. I don't understand why people say that. But again, it's because people have been brainwashed to think black people comes in all shades, and it's
no,
influenced by the.
everyone's
No,
mixed.
hold on. Let me
Hang
finish.
on, let
Yeah, go
MC
ahead.
finish. Come on, let him finish.
And you know,
He's got a good channel on this topic. He's very versed in what he's talking about.
yeah, I'm very protective of my image, like my phenotypical image. But anyway, so yeah, regarding Barack Obama, basically, he's an Afro-Euro. He's not black. He's not white. He's an Afro-Euro, and you know, I'll say it again because you know I forgot what I was saying. But basically, a lot of people that say he's black are the ones that are brainwashed into thinking that black comes in all shades. So they have this idea that, oh, they are light-skinned black people. There's no such thing as a light-skinned black person. There's no such thing. Have you ever heard someone say, oh,
There's such a
I'm a,
thing
no,
as
no,
a
wait, hold on,
dark-
hold on. Have you ever, hey, Davinsky, have you ever heard someone say, oh, I'm white, just dark-skinned? Well, I'm dark-skinned white with 2 white parents. Have you ever heard someone say that?
No.
No, and there's
You may say like you're a little bit tan, but you don't.
no, but you see,
It's
that's
nothing
not dark
like
though.
how it is with like
But
what
that's
you're
not
talking
dark
about.
though. Like, you know, there are some white people that are a bit darker than others, but they come in limited shades, and everyone knows this.
Yeah.
Yet when it comes to black people, oh, we come in all shades. Oh, we can look like anything. All these ridiculous shades. It's influenced by that stupid one drop rule. That racist one drop rule. I'm gonna say this. At the end of the day, this is gonna offend a lot of people, but
Who
at the end of the
started
day,
the
is what
one
it is.
drop
Black
rule?
people.
Where did that
Black
come
people.
from?
No, wait.
Hang on,
Oh, one more. At the end of the day,
Wait, hold on.
at the end of the day, black people have dark skin, dark brown eyes, afro texture hair, and are unambiguous. So all these people, these so-called light-skinned blacks and even brown-skinned blacks, you know what brown-skinned blacks? No. Do you know how they came about? They came about usually because a black person procreated with an Afro-Euro person. Usually that's the case. They are their own category. I even have a term to describe them anyway. It's marone, which is what you were asking about Davinsky. Yeah. So you know, your Michael B. Jordans, your Will Smiths, all these Gabriel Unions and whatnot. You know, all these
Would
people.
you say the average so-called Black American would be a Maroni in your opinion?
No. They just identify as black.
This
Are they all
broadcast.
non-white people?
Just hold on, cause can I chime in? Cause I'm rarely.
Hey, I wanna.
I'm rarely speaking, so let me chime in one time. This broadcast has been an exemplary, amazing demonstration on like buckets of words, and I suspect a lot of deception. We're talking about biracial, so-called biracial people. These are just non-white people who are probably confused. I suspect white people on this broadcast may be racist. I can't put my finger on it, but good. If you actually are a white person or a non-white person that is not totally lame and you want to end racism, because you have it in your hashtag description, end racism, go to producejustice.com. Actually get serious about producing justice by using truth and logic, not whatever's happening here. But somewhat
I
constructive.
don't. Hey, you don't feel welcome here. Like I feel like this conversation's been. This
He
guy, what
left.
the hell? Like everyone has been very polite. I've given everyone a fair chance to speak. Like
That's true.
I don't know what his problem was.
I have no idea. But should I? Do you have any? You wanted to ask me about the racial categories, or like?
Yeah. So go through your racial categories, and I'd ask you about the Maroni because wouldn't you say the average Black American would kind of look like a Will Smith type in terms of their?
No, I
Are
would
they
not.
not? Hold on. Wait a minute. Why do we have two people who are not in the United States commenting about black people in the United States? I'm
So
here.
what I said earlier.
I should
Yeah,
be the
that's
only one
crazy.
qualified. I should be the only one qualified to even comment on
But,
what black people in the United States look like, because I'm the only one here.
At
I'm
the
the only
beginning
one
of this,
in the chat, with the exception of the other person who just left. We're here. I'm
No,
here.
me.
Yeah, but
I'm in
hang on.
America, bro.
Wait,
hang on. So
who's in America?
at the beginning of this
Who's in the United
discussion,
States?
AdMac.
AdMac. So at
AdMac.
the
So, AdMac,
hang on.
are you the one that's making the comments though about?
No, that's
Are
MC.
you the one that's
No,
talking about the phenotypes and everything?
no.
Can I just
Okay.
say one
All
thing?
right.
Hang on.
So the other two, because that's what you got to look at, right? You should be looking at qualifications.
Hang
You
on,
should be
doctor.
looking at
Can I
who's qualified to
Go for
say
it, Dr.
what they
Davinsky.
say,
It's
right?
your show, innit?
Yeah, hang on. So I just want to say, like, when it comes to America and speaking on America, you guys are the sole superpower. When it comes to
I'm
media,
not.
hang on. Let me finish, doctor. So as I was saying, you guys are the sole superpower in the world. And when it comes to cultural influence, there's nothing more culturally influential than America in terms of academia, the media. So, like, what you guys say in terms of race, it echoes through the rest of the world. That's why there's an interest there, and that's why we talk about it.
Not only that,
And
just because.
I get it,
Go
but
on.
hang on.
don't
Go
say
on,
you
MC.
guys.
I was gonna say, just because we're not from the United States doesn't mean what we're saying is invalid. For example, I know about the one drop rule. If I state the information regarding the one drop rule, is my point invalid
Yeah.
just because I'm not from the United States?
No.
There's a
So
lot of
this is
people.
called.
There's a lot
This
of
is
Who
called.
Americans that know.
established the
Go on.
one drop rule?
Hang
Who
on. So
established that? Did
this is
black
what I
people
really hate. It's called
establish
an
the one
appeal
drop
to
rule?
identity.
Go on,
Hang
doctor.
on. So
The
this
one
is an
drop
appeal
rule
to
was
identity.
used for
Hang
practicing
on, doctor. I'm
racism.
gonna have to put you on mute if you don't. I need to control the space. Please let me finish. I don't want to have to mute you, but I need to actually make this point. So a lot of people, and I'm not just saying Americans, but a lot of people in general, they do the appeal to identity fallacy. So just because you're from a place or you're part of a group doesn't mean that you're right. Okay, so like I'll give you an example. I was talking to a Saudi Arabian once. This was in real life. He was a friend of mine during uni, and I mentioned that his country is
Man,
mostly
this is
desert, and he got offended, and he's like, "Oh, yada yada," and he's like, "I'm Saudi Arabian. I would know." So he left, and then I looked up that night. Saudi Arabia's geography. It's 95% desert, according to NASA. So just because you're from a place doesn't mean you're right. You're either right or you're wrong, and like you're
well, I'm not
just a,
asking about being right or wrong. I'm just only talking about qualifications.
And
That's it.
one last point is like you can say, "Oh, you're qualified because you're a Black American or you're from
No,
America." But
earlier
I've
you
spoken.
said you were
Hang on.
qualified
I've
because you were
spoken.
descendant of Hungarian Jews.
But you're not a spokesperson for that group. The group's not monolithic. I've spoken
I'm not
to
a
Black.
spokesperson for.
Hang on. I've spoken to Black Americans that agree with me and disagree with you. So why is your opinion like the holy word when there are Black Americans that agree with what I've said or what MC's said?
Well, my opinion is just my opinion. I'm not speaking for. See, this is the
But
thing.
you're
that
trying
I'm
to
saying,
disqualify
okay?
our opinions.
Both of you,
you're trying to disqualify
both of you
us.
are speaking for Black Americans, right? You're talking about what Black Americans do and what Black Americans think, and neither one of you are here. And then at the same time, you're telling me, a so-called Black American, that I'm not qualified. It's kind of like
I never said you weren't qualified. You said we weren't qualified. I'm not acting like I speak for anyone.
We're getting off track though.
Because
I said something a while ago that I wanted to get back to, because we don't have to argue about this, but obviously you're not disqualified or qualified either way. You know what I'm saying? But what I was saying earlier about the Black or the melanated woman having the more dominant gene, that wasn't a lie. That's actual truth. That you can look that up. That's fact.
It's
and
not
so
true.
it is true. Because there are such thing as dominant genes and recessive genes. This is a
for different phenotypes, but not race. There's not there's not a set of white.
No, I'm not talking about just race. I'm talking about generally like melanin. Melanin is that usually people who have melanin have the more dominant gene, and that's why the baby comes out with more melanin than not.
Actually, I've actually read into this quite a lot. There's his name's Khan. He's a UK biologist, and he did a lot of study into skin color and mixed race people. Because I don't know if you ever saw those two twins. One of them looked so-called white, the other looked so-called black. They were on TV. They both looked
one looked
slightly mixed.
White, one looked mixed.
Yeah. So like he was talking about that, and they were looking at skin tone, and he said that skin tone's polygenetic. So there's 20 genes that determine skin tone. And in the Western world, it actually, so it's normally intermediary. So normally you have like an intermediary middle ground between your both parents. But in the West, it's actually favored towards lighter skin because of selection bias. So because people tend to go for lighter skinned people over time, there's a bias where like light skin genes are more common. Therefore, light skin's actually more dominant than dark skin. But usually it's middle ground. So this whole idea that dark skin is dominant just isn't true.
Yeah, can I interject?
Who started the one drop rule? Where did that
Hang on,
come from?
let's hear from MC and then we can go on to the one drop rule.
I wanted to address what you said earlier, Dr. Davinsky, about Barack Obama. You made a point about him, how, you know, he's usually, it was something about him being darker than what you usually see from an Afro-Euro, like in terms of skin tone, right? Let me make a comment.
In terms of hair texture too, I'd say, and like facial features.
Okay, can I clarify?
He's still, yeah, go on.
Okay, so the reason why you think that he's the darker, like, than what you usually see of a Afro-Euro is because, unfortunately, a lot of these Afro-Euros in the United States in particular that are passed
What is
off
an
in
Afro-Euro?
it is black and white. Unfortunately, there isn't a term that, I mean, there's a term which is mulatto, but unfortunately, you know, Afro-Euros are offended. Basically, half black, half white. But yeah, there's already a term
similar to like
mulatto,
Blasian or Eurasian.
Yeah, Eurasian, Zambo, Mestizo. These are all
terms.
classifications for different types of mixed race people. So I came up with the term Afro-Euro, and people are starting to use it. It's actually catching on now.
Yeah,
just so
I used what I used to call
Euro-Afric?
Afro-Europe. No, Afropeans is what I say, but
right.
I think that's a good one too because you're including both. Like continental, I think it's a bit less ambiguous.
Who named Europe?
I think it comes from the Romans.
Hang
on. Let MC just finish. Go on. Sorry.
Who named Africa? Was it white people or non-white people?
Let me finish my point. So Dr. Vinci, regarding what you said earlier about, you know, Barack Obama's skin tone being a lot darker than what you usually see of an Afro-Euro. The reason why is because, unfortunately, especially in the United States, they keep presenting Afro-Euros who are predominantly white, and so those, you know, for example, you know, the Meghan Markles and Rashida Jones and Mariah Careys, you know, these type of people that are predominantly white. It's because they don't. It's because they don't actually have a black parent. That's why.
Right.
They have a mixed looking parent, or Maroni. It depends which, you know, level. But yeah, they have a mixed looking parent and one white parent, and that's why they look the way they do. They're not, the media are passing them off as if they have a black parent when they actually don't. So if anything, Barack Obama is actually the typical Afro-Euro.
And I just want to touch. Okay, that's a good point. Actually,
did you say you invented the term Afro-Euro? Did you say that?
I didn't say I came up with the term as an alternative for mulatto because mulatto is offensive. So on my channel, I made a video. It's called The Real FGBs.
Oh, mulatto is offensive. Oh.
Yeah, because it comes from Spanish. Which
means the same thing, right?
It's a donkey and a horse, a mule, basically. So
yeah, I'm familiar with the term. You know about the other terms, quadroon and octamaroon. You know about those terms?
Unfortunately, those are all, you know, from slavery, so they are offensive.
But you get my point, Dr. Davinsky, about
no, that's a decent point. What I will say is that that's what I said earlier. So when you have like a mixed race person, let's say like an East Asian like an English person, right? Like a Japanese and English. So they tend to like look in between. But once you get like, say like a Eurasian, so a Japanese and white person, and then a white person, then they tend to look way more white because it unlocks usually recessive genes.
More white?
Yeah, in terms of like hair color, and because in terms to have like blonde hair or blue eyes, you need to have two copies. So either parent has to have them. And if you're like full Nigerian or full Japanese, there's basically a 0% chance that you have the recessive copy. Therefore, it's impossible for your offspring to have those features.
Okay, so wait, a blonde hair, blue eye person is a white person?
I mean, those are typically European features, like Northern, Western European features.
So you do believe in the concept of race. You guys believe in the concept of race. You think that?
I mean, there are certain features that are like racial features or ethnic features, whatever you want to call them, right?
Well,
that's how we.
Yeah, that racist.
Can't you find these features? Can't you find these features? Like, haven't you seen? I've looked at pictures of black people in Australia with blue eyes.
Those aren't black people though. If we're talking about racially
Yeah.
African, like those
Wait,
aren't black
so
people.
so you what is a black person to you? Are they dark? Is a
Not
black
only
person
not, not
someone
only
with
just
dark
dark
skin
skin,
or what?
not only
And
just
what's
dark
the
skin.
degree of darkness?
Okay, no,
Darker
okay,
than a
okay.
brown paper bag, darker than
MC,
No,
why
no,
don't you go
that's not
through
how it
your
works.
why don't you go through
polish
your
or what?
categories and like give like examples of people, you know, the Maronis and like who you
Yeah.
consider.
But let me
I
start
think
with
that's
what he said about what is a black person. Okay, so dark skin, dark brown eyes, Afro textured hair, and unambiguous. And I actually made a whole ass list of black people worldwide. So not just the United States, but from Britain, from Belgium, France, you name it, Jamaica, Haiti.
But what's
I
the
made a
but
huge
what's the
list.
degree? Where's the I guess
I guess what you're asking is
where's the color line? Where's the
right. So as
where's
in
the
like
color
the
line? Because
cutoff point.
darkness is
So you're
you
asking for
know
the cutoff point, like so, like yeah, is that what you're
yeah.
asking for? The
Where's the
cutoff point.
cutoff point?
Okay, so I'll name this individual. Her name is Clara Amfo.
Clara Amfo. She somebody that can be Googled or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Or
All
actually,
right,
as a matter of
Clara
fact, search her up. Search her up on YouTube.
Amfo. How you spell the last name?
Search her up on YouTube. Clara Amfo. So CLAR. No wait, yeah. So CLARA, Clara, and then Amfo, AMFO.
I'm guessing like biracial people in the UK and like in Europe and
Okay. So Clara
are way
Amfo.
more likely.
Did you search her up on YouTube? Yeah.
Yeah, I see. I'm just looking at her image.
Oh, you're on Google. Well, it's better that you go on
I'm
YouTube.
looking at
It's
her
more
image,
accurate.
and I see Clara Amfo. She's got some blonde hair in her head. She's got eyelashes. I guess these long eyelashes. A lot of makeup, like a lot of fake stuff. But
Wait,
but
what
are
Clara
we
Amfo
looking
you
at her
looking at?
skin
Blonde
tone?
hair?
Are we looking at her skin tone?
Not
Or what?
not. Well, you asked about the cutoff point when it comes to skin tone, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
what we're
what I
talking
said.
about. So her skin tone is the beginning or the end?
As in, like anything lighter, not black, but in the Maroni category.
Okay, anything lighter than her
Yeah,
is not black.
yeah. But
Okay,
so
got
like
it.
you
All
see
right.
your
And so
quote unquote
is
brown skinned people that you guys call it, yeah. Those
okay,
are Maroni people,
Moroni people. Okay,
and
now
they
the way she looks, I'm looking at her skin tone. Is she considered to be what? Is
dark.
she like
Yeah,
what
she's
pure
dark.
black or something? Is that pure black? Like
Why
that's a
do people
100%
keep using the
black
term
or
pure?
Am I black? Can you answer the
huh?
question? Am I black?
Let's keep it simple. Who?
Am I black? You see me?
Yeah, I can see you, but here's the thing: there's literally sunshine, or I don't know what that's in your face. So
It's
it's
light.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
and
I can't
I'm
judge.
when I look
So
at
you
Clara
can't
Amfo,
tell
you know,
it.
it
You
does look
can't
like
tell.
photography, a
No,
photograph.
but
So I'm
also
sure
if you
there's
have
some
to
light on
ask,
her.
then
Hmm?
chances are you're not, because black people don't have to ask if they're black. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I'm asking you based off of
Wait,
your
wait.
I know.
your
Black people don't
your
have to
shit is
ask
something
if they're
that's new.
black.
I've never heard
But Barack
before.
Obama says he's black. I've heard Barack Obama say he's
Hold
referred
on,
to
hold on.
himself
Don't
as black,
interrupt. I
but he
wanna
doesn't fit your. Oh, my
I
bad.
want him to. I want because he said he classified this. Does my skin tone? You see my skin tone?
Yeah.
Does it count as black?
Well, you look like who? Well, it depends. Who would you compare yourself to? Like Steve Harvey or what? I'm just asking. Like, who would you compare
Compare?
yourself to? Huh?
I
Steve
don't really
Harvey, Will
care.
Smith, or Michael B. Jordan? What?
I'm a little bit darker than Will Smith, just a little
Okay, are
bit.
you Michael B. Jordan's skin complexion?
Yeah, damn near, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I'll put you in the Maroni category. And you should, if you don't mind
A
me saying,
Maroni.
big up to the yeah, Maroni.
What's that?
What
Now,
about
what's Maroni?
Maroni. So basically, that's another term. So it's actually Italian. It's an Italian term for brown, and basically, I'm using it for what you guys call brown-skinned people.
Marone, like maroon, like maroon
Yeah,
in
you
Spanish,
could say that, but I mean, I just typed
Latin.
in brown and Italian. The Italian word Maroni came up, and I said, let me use that. And some of my followers, they start calling themselves Maroni, which is pretty cool. Like they're the ones in
Another
between.
non-white person, though, right?
Yeah, it's a non-white person, but it's also a non-black person.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if people are mistreated because they're non-white, it doesn't matter if you're black, brown, or yellow. If you got the one drop or whatever. So since can you tell me about the one drop rule? Like, what do you know about that?
That if you have one drop of black blood in you, you're automatically considered black. If you had black
Did
blood,
black
you were
people
seen as
establish
tainted.
that rule?
No, they did not. But
Okay, so
but as
why
of
was that
today,
rule established in the first place?
wait, let me continue. No, black people didn't create that rule. White people did. However, as of today, a lot of black people are perpetuating that one drop rule by claiming mixed looking people as black people
No, but why did they make that rule in the first place, though?
to keep the white race pure. But also, you know, in addition to that, they want to basically eliminate the black race, you know, breeding them out of
Okay, so
extinction.
why do they want to eliminate the black race?
Why?
Yes.
Dr. Davinsky, do you want to go?
No, I want you to, or
Why do
if
they
you don't
want
know,
to
why do you feel like it?
No, hold on. Why do they want to eliminate the black race?
Yes.
I don't know. They just do it. Like same with Argentina. You know,
Okay, so
they
this is
just
why I
have
think
this thing of
the whole thing about because the whole thing about these categories that you put everyone in is unnecessary, right?
how is it unnecessary.
Because everyone's mixed. Everybody's
So then
mixed with
why
a
do
lot of
we
different
call it
things.
then? But you at the end of the day, right? Just because there's someone far away down your lineage, doesn't mean that we don't have different distinctive physical traits. That would be like me saying I'm the same race as Jackie Chan just because we all mixed. You know what I'm saying? It's disingenuous. At the
No,
end of
I'm
the
not
day,
saying that you're all the same race. I'm saying that
I
we're
know you
all
didn't say that. You said
mixed.
we're all mixed. Yeah, I'm saying,
Yeah.
but, and my point still stands. Just because there's someone that's so far away within your lineage, you know, okay, I get your point, but we still have different distinctive physical traits. I look different from Jackie Chan. The reality is, race is the categorization of humankind who share similar physical, distinctive traits. That is the reality. Black people, especially if you look at Africa, black people have dark skin, dark brown eyes, Afro textured hair, and are unambiguous. This is the reality. This is not even up for debate. Yes, you're going to see other people that look different from black people in Africa, but that doesn't mean they're black. Just like I'm in Europe, I'm from the UK. That
But do
doesn't
you
mean
see why?
I'm
Because
white.
there's people with dark skin who has red hair, or dark skin who had like reddish hair, or um darker skin but blue eyed, and that's what I'm saying. You're categorizing as black people. You're saying that it's black. It's you're using a
Basically, I gave
color.
you the criteria, innit?
Yeah, you're using a color to
Not just the color,
describe genetics,
not just the
right?
whoa, we're talking about phenotype. We're talking about phenotype. That's what you guys asked me about the cutoff point, blah blah blah. And by the way, let's not conflate genetics with ancestry. You can have the same, just for example, you can have the same parents as your sibling. Yeah, that doesn't mean you have the same nuclear DNA when we're talking about genetics. Your ancestry, again, having the same parents does not mean you have the same nuclear DNA because of genetic
No,
recombination.
that's not my point. I'm saying you're using
Yeah,
a
okay.
color.
You know what's
Listen to what I'm saying. You're using a color, black, to
Yeah,
describe genetics or phenotypes, whatever you want to call
okay.
it. You're using that, and that's what I'm saying. That's where it is very confusing at, because there's so many people, there's so many shades of brown and black and whatever you want to call it. So it's like, and there's so many different eye colors and hair textures and hair colors. So it's hard for you to just
Amongst
sit
human
there and say
beings,
that black people are this particular group,
then why is it easy to say white people look like this? Yeah, we're like black comes in all shades.
because they're a more simplified race.
So why
Usually,
not the same for black people? It should be that simple, but unfortunately, the United States, no offense to you lot, but unfortunately, the black category in the United States is an absolute mess because it basically it's like it's lost its meaning because anyone can be black. It to the point where it is such, the black category in the United States is such
well,
a mess. Wait, let me finish this point. Let me
even
finish
white
this
people are
point.
mixed
Let
though.
me finish this point,
Yeah,
please. The black category in the United States is such an absolute mess, an absolute clutter that Rachel Dolezal was able to pass off as a black woman just by putting on fake tan and some
that?
curly hair, and she was able to do that for years.
But
That
but
should
that
be a
is
wake up
that's
call.
obviously,
that's
so
not
it's her. So we need to
that's
stop
not
doing it
black
based
people's
off of
fault though.
color. We need to start talking about genetics and where people actually, what type of genetic they or lineage they come from, their genetics.
Wait, are
Instead of
you
talking
saying
about
that
race so
Most
much,
because
white
we
people
use
have the
no, no,
ability
white,
we're
to
talking about
black,
present
no,
themselves off
we
as
use
non-white.
red, we use these different colors, but the genetics is what's most important about a person. And
yes,
it's
but
not, that's what tell them, yeah.
your phenotype is a reflection of your nuclear DNA. That's just a fact.
Yeah, but
That's why I said let's
it
not
doesn't show
conflate.
That's
everything.
just
Like
non-white people.
you can't just
What
look at somebody and tell what they are
what do you mean what they are? What
by
that's
their
subjective.
phenotype.
No, no, no. When you
Just
say the
by their
phrase "what they
phenotype
are,"
alone.
when you
Yeah.
say the phrase "what they are," that's subjective. When you say "what they are," that means that could mean what they are phenotypically, what they are ancestrally, etc. So that's vague.
This is, you know
Okay,
what?
so
This is almost like
you're not getting where the issue is coming from, right?
Tell me what the issue is. What is the issue?
The issue that's why the whole one drop rule and all that was made is because the issue comes from melanin, right? When you have melanin, you typically have there is, and there's scientific evidence for this too. People with melanin seem to have more of a sense of spirituality to them, right? And not all, I mean, there's white people who have spirituality to them too, but it's just that the in history it shows that a lot of envy was projected towards people with melanin and period in general, right? And
Okay.
so when they generalize, so they use these categories, right, and these generalizations and labels to kind of separate us from each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when you say black people are uh this and this and this,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
they
saying?
have a particular phenotype that they share amongst each other.
So basically what I'm trying to say is that they care about genetics. Long story short,
Who's
they
they?
care about genetics
Who?
because that's what matters.
Who's they?
The people who are in power, the
What
people
white
who
people?
not did not
Yeah, they
the
white. He's
the
right.
the people, the Rockefellers, the
White.
so that's what I'm saying. We got to stop using colors because we're saying white people,
Okay, yeah.
but
So
no,
that's
it's not
what.
just white people. It's they are white, but it's
They're
Rockefellers,
white, smart, and powerful.
Basically,
Rothschilds,
you want the
Yep.
terms to
the
change
Jew.
instead of using the term like colors as racial
We need to
classifications. You
use
want
ethnic labels more than we should use actual skin
like
color.
racial labels.
Ethnic labels.
Hold on. I mean, because when we're talking about skin color, does a white person actually have the skin that's the color of a white piece of paper?
Not literally. I've said that. I've said
Okay, so then we know
obviously,
it's not really when it comes to
And
them. It's right.
it's not just that too. It's like it's not all white people because a lot of white people have uh this neuromelanin within them, and they don't like people who have neuromelanin inside of them. And these same people that I'm talking about don't like that. They want to get rid of people who have neuromelanin
Or keep
because they have
control
the
of it.
potential to surpass and able to, change the world and shit like that.
are you
It's a
trying to
long
I think
story,
suggest
they
but
that
could have
white
got
people
rid of us
created
a
the
long
one drop
time
rule?
ago if they wanted to be
Are you trying
honest.
to suggest that white people created the one drop rule because of envy, against other people for having way more melanin than them, being richly melanated? Is that
yes, because they don't want them to eventually take over, basically, because they have the
interesting?
intelligence and the spirituality and the knowledge to when they
Oh,
develop at a certain level to change this whole entire world.
So
It's
it's not
about
going to
genetics, bro.
change if that's no, no. What you just said, right? If that's the case, then them creating like that's pretty pointless in the sense that it's not going to change the fact that they have way less melanin. So trying to
I'm
eliminate black people just because of
No,
that, it's pretty
I'm
pointless.
just I'm
no,
just gonna go ahead
it's
and
not
say
just
that
black people. It's not just black people. It's
Who's
majority.
others?
It's majority black people. There's some white people too who have neuromelanin, and that's why it goes back to your genetics and it goes back to your DNA.
What's your
And
point?
so my point is that they don't want people with neuromelanin, which is not your skin color. It's not going to show just in your skin color. It kind of shows in your
they use
personality,
a lot of different
right?
terms.
Okay, so what now?
So basically, they want to get rid of these people. That's why they have the population plan. Majority of these people are quote unquote black, right, and brown, but some of them are white too, and that's why they're trying to depopulate a whole entire group basically
No, they're
of
already
people.
doing that in the United States. That's why, people keep saying the average Black American looks like Michael Jordan or Will Smith and whatnot, when it's not actually true. It's just those people identify as Black. A lot of, you see these Black statistics
Why do they
in the United States.
identify as Black?
Because you tell me. Some people have
Like I've
different
been
reasons.
trying to tell you, like I've been trying to tell all of you guys from the beginning. We are told that we're Black.
Yeah, noted. Yeah, there's
We're
that
told
as well.
that we're African Americans. We're told that we're colored. We're told that we're Negro. Who told us that?
White people.
That's it.
No, I know,
And
but
that's who we should be really looking at instead of reinventing terms for what we should be called and
Wouldn't that
adding
make more
more
sense?
to the confusion. We should be getting down to the bottom of it so we can eliminate this problem, which to me is racism, white supremacy. And
Okay.
you could, no matter how you keep looking up there at the top, you don't have to go far. You're not gonna find some wealthy Black families or some wealthy Black people that were involved in setting up this process.
Okay, but
Yeah, they were.
that's irrelevant because
You have your
right now there are a
sellouts.
lot of,
You have your sellouts. But
listen,
No, you
listen,
don't.
yes, we
there are a lot
do.
of Black
We
don't have
have
any-
sellouts, bro. We have sellouts. How do you think they didn't do it by
What is a
themselves?
sellout? What is a sellout?
A sellout is someone who's Black who decided to help them stay in control. Like the Black
somebody
groups
who's
like the Black
who
Boule.
decided
basically
to
throwing Black
help them
people,
stay
fellow
in
Black people
control.
under the bus.
So, would you say that do they control your water bill? Who do you pay water to? Who pay your water bill to?
I
Whose
don't
internet
have
are we using right now?
I don't have a water bill.
You don't have a water bill? You got an internet bill?
Yeah, I got internet bill.
Okay, who do you pay for your internet?
I pay the company that owns this complex.
The company that owns it is it Black?
No, it's not Black.
Who established it?
I don't know exactly. I know they're probably white, but that's not my point.
So are you then a sellout? Because you helping them keep their business going. Are you a sellout?
No, I'm not a sellout. What I'm saying that there are.
Bro. We're all sellouts. We're all sellouts. There's in every shape, way, or form. There's some kind of way we are helping the system continue. There's no way out of it.
When you say we're all sellouts, you're talking about all human beings regardless of race, right?
Every non-white person on this planet is
every non-white
working
person
in cooperation with the system of white supremacy.
You don't think white people can be sellouts? You don't think white people can be sellouts?
White people can be sellouts? What are they selling out to?
It doesn't. Well, ask you. You may want to ask Davinsky that.
Why do I want to ask Davinsky
because he's white?
And it's your question.
Because he's white. I'm saying and you said we're all sellouts, and I just wanted to check if you're talking about all human beings regardless of race, or you specifically talking about a particular group.
I'm talking about the idea that has been pushed on the minds of non-white people that we got sellouts and traitors and and we.
You know what? That was true though. I ain't gonna lie.
The way that I say the
we're looking at non-white people who for whatever reason are doing what they're doing. You don't know if they've been forced to do it. You don't know if they've been brain trashed into doing it. You don't know what are the circumstances for them to do what they do. And we're pointing the finger at them as if somehow they're the ones that are responsible for it continuing when we're all responsible for it continuing.
I think we all have a part to play, but I think that there's people who knew who had us they
Dr.
they
Davinsky,
knew.
You got to put your mic up, bro.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so the way that I see the world is that the distinction is between the poor and the rich. Like this racial kind of stuff it's just a distraction. So when you look at take the global north and the global south. So previously these were called first world and third world countries. Without the third world countries, that's how the global north, that's how we function. That's how we live off the exploitation of cheap labor, of exploitation of their minerals.
Or white people.
No, you as an American, you benefit off the exploitation of the third world. So if you take hang on, I'm gonna have to put you on mute. So the bottom 10% of Americans and this is cost of living effective. The bottom 10% of Americans in terms of income per capita are better off than 80% of the world's population in terms of their purchasing power, their lifestyle. So like the poorest Americans are better off than the vast majority of working adults, right? And that's cost of living effective. So it's not just like, oh, poorer countries are cheaper to live in. No, it's relative to the cost of living. So the real privilege is the first world privilege, and those aren't exclusively white countries. You've got the Gulf region and the Middle East. You've got East Asia, Japan. You've got Korea. We live off the exploitation of the third world. And likewise, when you go into an individual nation, so take away the global scale, we go into an individual nation. You can see that the top like 10% of people, the top 1% of people own like 80% of the wealth in America and in like Australia. So it's wealth inequality that's the real thing. And this whole idea about race, it's just a distraction. If you look at the highest income earners in America, it's Indians, it's Jewish people, it's Cubans. So this is the real privilege, is wealth, because with wealth you get access to education, you get access to better health, you get access to better foods, better schools. The real privilege is having wealth. This race shit is just a total distraction. When you look at income per capita in America, you'll see that white Americans are like 20th place in terms of ethnic groups above them, you know? So it's really just, it's not really true, this whole idea about race being this whole issue. It's the real issue is wealth. And when you look at certain immigrant groups that come over to America, like Nigerian Americans, for instance, at one point in time, I think like 2015, 2016, they were the most educated per capita in terms of bachelor degrees and master degrees. It's not because Nigerian Americans are smarter than other people. It's because there's a selection bias. In order for Nigerian Americans to come over, the most educated, the most wealthy were selected. It's the same with Indians. It's the same with Chinese. So this is the real issue, is wealth and class. And for instance, like this whole notion that like the white man's trying to hold down the world and like everyone else would get along, it's just not true. You can look at Mauritania, you can look at Chad, Niger. These are African nations, all right? These are like typically black nations, but for hundreds of years they've had a slave system called it's with the Berbers, and the Berbers are basically Arab-looking people, and it's a hierarchical structure. And at the bottom of their hierarchy are called Iceland. The Iceland people are black Berbers, right? And Iceland means to be black, and these Icelands are the slaves. So 10% of Mauritania are slaves, black slaves, and the slave owners are Arab-looking Berbers. So this whole notion that like everyone would get along if it wasn't for white people is complete bullshit. White people are the ones who abolished slavery. White people are the ones who like elect, like look at London, and like they got a Pakistani mayor for London. Ireland has a half Indian prime minister, like back in the day. Like Japan is nothing like it. So developed countries like Japan, the deputy prime minister came out several times. He said Japan's a nation of one race, one ethnicity, one language. Can you imagine any Western leader saying that? But it's totally accepted there. Even here in Thailand, there's a Japanese area, and foreigners aren't allowed to go into their bars and clubs. Like, you don't understand the racism in other cultures because you think the West is the worst. It's really not.
Nah, you should come here, bro. You should come.
Dr. Davinsky, I think they're just. I think the thing is like, I get what you're saying. I think they in America, obviously they're focused on what's happening in America and what's happening to them. Like, for example, the one drop rule was created by white people. I'm not saying this to defend or attack them. I'm just saying I think they're just speaking from their personal experiences and observation just in America. I don't think that's to deny that there isn't,
there's a horrible history there. I'm not denying that, but we've come so far in terms of like progress in equality, whereas other nations are way further behind us in terms of like our equality now. So instead of this constant demonization, there should be some congratulations in terms of like how white nations have progressed. Like when you look at these movements, they take after Western nations. Like when you look at these like Iranian movements with the hijab, like they look at the West as an example. They're like freedom. So this is what I'm saying is like the West in terms of like identity is really up there in terms of their progress. like here in Thailand, and Thailand's a great country. Like I do love it here. My girlfriend's a Black American. She's never really experienced anything hateful, but they say stuff that's really insensitive. And like Americans, like you can say something like the average person is really dumb, right? Like the average person's dumb, but then you got to realize 50% of people are even dumber than the average person. So, like if you take a white person from Alabama, like they may say something offensive, but they may not understand why or the like why it's offensive. It's just ignorance. And when you do that and you look at like, I think people are too quick to label someone something, especially a white person, instead of like educating them. Whereas here they say something like super offensive, but this is the same. It's not coming from a place of hatred. This is coming from a place of ignorance.
Noted. Dr. Davinsky, can I mention something important that is racial related? It's about representation quickly, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to point out something important. So obviously, the reason why okay, let me put it like this. In America, unfortunately, there's this racist agenda to basically replace Black people with mixed looking people, especially in the media in particular, right? So they keep presenting these mixed looking people as Black people. And so over time, it conditions people to see, Black people as being racially ambiguous or mixed looking. So they're going to have this idea that, these mixed looking people are Black, basically. And this is a problem. And do you know why this is a problem? This is a problem because basically, you see, for example, young little Black girls, right? When they're looking at their TV screens and they see mixed looking women who are being presented as Black, what happens is those little Black girls, it basically affects their low self. Hold on a sec. Guys.
It's all right. We can hear you.
Apologies. Yeah. So, So basically, the media is using mixed-looking women, right, to represent Black women's image, right, and that's not right. And why this is a problem is because, unfortunately, with the little Black girls watching at home, when they see their TV screens and they're looking at those women, in their mind, they're thinking, "Wait, hang on. So apparently, this is supposed to be a Black woman on my screen, but she looks nothing like me."
Yeah.
So, and it's going to gaslight that little Black girl into thinking that her type of Black is wrong. Like there's something wrong with her look and she has to change it. So this is why, what happens next is those little Black girls, they grow up to have low self-esteem and it causes them to want to lighten their skin and to, manipulate their hair and try to look like that mixed looking woman who is presented as Black. It
That's not
basically makes them
happening in
think.
America, bro. I'm sorry, but that's not happening.
Listen,
That's not what's going on.
It's been happening for like decades. I remember watching
No,
like the
yeah.
countdown for hot music, and like back then Beyonce, like all of these people, like they're very racially mixed, but they pass it. They claim Black, like Mariah Carey and all these people. Like
they're presented as Black in the media, and so these
Yeah.
little girls think they have to rectify their look by looking at the so-called Black woman on the screen. That's not right. So
But
that's why I make my videos.
It definitely is changing though. I've definitely noticed a change over the past like 5 years or so, especially with Netflix and like people like Zendaya and the princess from what's her name, the one that married what's his name, Harry or someone, the UK one, Meghan Markle. So these kinds of people are like changing the narrative because
how so?
In terms of identifying as mixed and biracial, there's a change in Zendaya, obviously. So what I see is like usually back in the past, the Black people that obviously look mixed, they had both parents that were mixed also. But more like
MGMs.
Maroney, whatever.
Marone. Yeah. So the ones that are quote unquote brown skin, your Michael B. Jordans, Nia Longs.
But now it's way more common to be like biracial, so like Black and white. And when you have that, then they identify as biracial way more. There was a study that I used in the last debate you and I had with other people, and 60 or 70% of Black and white mixed race people identify as multiracial, not just Black, which was surprising to me actually.
But
so
can I also?
Think there's
but that's the crazy part. Most African Americans are that color that you're describing. What do you say, maroonish, maronic, whatever it's called?
Marone. That's not true. But that's not true. Remember, there's a difference between a Black
That is
American.
true.
No, wait. Let me clarify.
Okay, go ahead.
Because then I can say, oh, the average white American looks like Vanessa Williams. But no, you guys aren't going to say that because you're not including mixed-looking people into the white category. Whereas Maronis, they're not black people. But just because there's more of them than black people doesn't mean that they're black Americans. It goes both ways. For white Americans, black Americans, and for me, this is a racial thing, like all over the world, not just black Americans, black Brits. Race is universally consistent. Yeah, the reality is the average black person, yeah, especially in the United States, actually looks like Wesley Snipes and Shaquille O'Neal. That's the reality.
What I will say too is like a lot of people, like for instance, there's a ton. I've had tons of like friends at school and whatever, like half Aboriginal, quarter Aboriginal, and they look completely white. So you walk past these people in the street and you wouldn't realize that, hey, this is actually a mixed race person, but they pass as white.
Who are you
So
talking
but you
about?
do notice people that are more on the darker side. So this is why people think that the black genes like more dominant or whatever.
Who are you
But it's
talking
actually
about,
it's
Dr.
not.
Davinsky?
It's just you don't notice the white passing ones, you know.
Wait. You said white pass away. Who are you talking about? Sorry.
Who's that girl? That she's a like a debate kind of girl on what's her name? Fucking.
Wait, are you talking
I'm
about those twins?
No, yeah. For instance, yeah, that's a good example actually. So what that white-looking one, she would walk down the street and people would be like, "Oh, a white girl," so they wouldn't recognize her as being mixed.
Well,
so they're yeah.
can I
Sorry,
can I interject? So this is why because remember I said the definition of race is the categorization of humankind who share similar distinctive physical traits. So with that being said, right, I think we need to separate one's ancestry from race. Because again, remember, just because you have the same ancestry or the same parents doesn't mean you have the same nuclear DNA as your sibling. That's why, and I said it's because of genetic recombination. Genetic recombination is what causes like variety. This is why siblings look different.
but it's
Yeah, if
usually pretty
what you're
close. It
saying,
usually is pretty close. Like for instance, I have seen a lot of journalists or whatever, and they take DNA tests as twins, but not identical, or as sisters or siblings, and they usually get within like 10% of the same ethnicities.
but even if it's a little, no, well, I wasn't even like, and DNA test or no DNA test. I'm just saying, like, let's keep it simple and say parents, right? For example, parents. If you just because you have the same parents as your sibling doesn't mean you have the same nuclear DNA as
Yeah,
your
and
sibling.
like
And this
different.
is why siblings look different, and
Like
this is regardless of race. But go on.
I'm Irish Hungarian, and we all have features from both. So like I have like red hair, like and black chest hair. So like my red hair is obviously Irish. My black chest hair is obvious. I'm super hairy. That's the Hungarian side.
Okay.
Whereas my brother has brown, super dark eyes, Hungarian, blonde hair, which is way more like Irish, and tan skin, which is Hungarian. My older brother is super hairy and in between in skin tone. So if we took all of those features, we could make someone who looks completely Irish or someone who looks completely Hungarian. It's kind of weird in that sense. Is we look very different, but our phenotypes. If we like swapped some with others, we could make someone who looks very different.
But yeah, it's all about genetic lottery and genetic recombination. But yeah, I think we should like based on the definition of race, we should like not conflate race with ancestry because like for example, it's like, are you going to say Hillary Clinton is no longer white just because she has a black ancestor going way back? Like it would be impractical.
Well,
it would be
But
impractical.
what I'm trying to show you is that majority because we was talking about quote unquote blacks in America, which you consider to not black because most of the blacks in America are a brownish color. It's like majority of them like are brownish and a lot of them are not, or some of them are darker, but majority of them are a brownish color. And so I would
Those are
just
Maroney Americans, and then you got your Afro-Euro Americans like Barack
The
Obama.
southern black Americans are usually way more dark, like Gucci Man and stuff. Whereas
Oh
like
yeah.
the ones
So
from
you're
Chicago
talking
and
about the
stuff,
no, no.
the
Even in the
Gullah.
even in the South, no matter where you go, like a lot of them are brownish. They're not.
but I'd
They're
say
not
like
dark.
South is usually
But then
the
they're not
average
black
black
then.
is a lot darker.
Well, then we've been bamboozled because a
No, I
lot of
agree.
them.
Yeah, that's why I have my channel. That's why a lot of Maronis. So I have so many Maronis who support my channel. I have
What
so many.
I kind of
Mhm.
disagree with MC in this kind of aspect. I think that if you're like majority one race, you tend like a Maroney, like Will Smith or who's that game show guy that you mentioned a
Steve
lot?
Harvey.
Steve Harvey. I would say that they're kind of borderline. Like they could pass as mixed in, but they could also kind of go as black.
Can I interject?
Even that, yeah.
Okay, so here's my response. I want you guys to realize something here. So ever notice that whenever there's a quote unquote buffer group, no one get offended, I'm just trying to make a point here. Ever notice whenever there's a buffer group, whenever there's a group that is in between black and other, they're always assigned to the black race. And the same is happening with Maronis. They are literally bang on in between, you know, your Afro-Euros and your blacks, but yet they're also being assigned to the black race. So anything that's in the middle is always being assigned to the black race.
And also with these people, you can do the same with like Mediterraneans, like Europeans, like a lot of Italians and Spanish people. They're like they say sometimes they're white, sometimes they're not, and like these people tend to they kind of hover. So like they sometimes
know what
super
you mean.
racist actually. Like I've heard like these kind of people like roast black people, like your skin so dark, yeah, ugly, whatever. And the same with like these, so they can kind of like pick and choose what they are.
Well, I mean, the reality is anyone in life can identify as whatever they want. Because at the end of the day, look, we live in a world where you got men identifying as women. So there's no argument there. I'm just saying what it is. Like, you know, the reality is black people have dark skin, dark brown eyes, Afro textured hair, and
but like they can kind of like so I've noticed like a lot of Somalis and stuff, like because they got a lot of Arab admixture. Some of them are super racist actually, like black people that don't see themselves
anyone
as
that
black.
isn't black is like a lot of these, even Maronis, a lot of them are racist to black people. Ever notice that when someone's saying, oh, colorism, this colorism, that is usually like an Afro-Euro or a Maroni being racist to blacks. You won't see a Michael Jordan say to a Viola Davis or vice versa.
But then when it's
or
convenient to be black, they will like take
like
that
you won't
category.
see me. You can see my picture. Could you imagine me coming up to Viola Davis and making fun of her for being dark when I'm dark myself?
Yeah.
So a lot of the
like,
times,
like
I'm just
if you
saying,
say like,
usually.
or if you sometimes like for white people, for instance, if I say something about them being white, they'll look at me and they'll be like, "Oh, you're way whiter," or whatever.
Yeah. So a lot of the times, Dr. Davinsky, I want you to pay attention, right? A lot of the times in the media, when people are talking about blacks, you know, being colorists or racist or whatever to other blacks, it's usually Maronis being racist to blacks or Afro-Euros being racist to blacks. Let's keep it real. Like, for example, do you know the incident that happened with Chef Wei? Do you know Chef Wei?
No.
Okay, there's this chef called Chef Wei, and basically he was a Maroni American, right? And he made a tweet about this black woman, beautiful black woman, and he said she's too black.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were saying
like
black men this, black men. I'm like, no. He's a Maroni. You see, I don't want to take responsibility for people that look nothing like me. This is why it's important to make the distinction.
There's a lot of similarities in terms of like, for instance, I'm like super pale. I don't really tan, so like I'm too white. There's a lot of similarities between like really dark skinned people and really light skinned people. Whereas like if you're in between, you can kind of just hover around and like you're more like normal because there's way more people, I guess, that look like you.
Why can't they instead of being called black, why don't they just be called Maroni? Or if anything, why can't they just be called dark-skinned Afro-Euros?
What's your ethnicity? Like, which country do your ancestors come from?
Wait. I'll answer that. But first, like, do you get my point? Why can't they just be called dark-skinned Afro-Euros? Or brown-skinned Afro-Euros, since they're bang on in the middle. Like, again, remember what I said about how every time there's a buffer group, any group that's in the middle, they're always assigned to the black race. Do you know?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that trend? Anyone, if you're black in this, black. Even if you're Maroni, black. Do you know what I mean? Anything that's in the middle, assigned to black. That's not fair. Would you agree or disagree with that? Or at least do you get my point, Dr. Davinsky?
Yeah, no, I definitely get your point in terms of like there being representation. But what I'd say in the West, and I read some academic paper from China actually, examining the cultural differences between beauty standards, and they said that their beauty standards were way more in line with like the average Chinese, but they said that the beauty standards in the West, in America specifically, has changed to be like more Hispanic, so wider lips, tanner skin, bigger lips. Because of like mixture and like I guess wanting to include more people in the beauty standard. So like there's the same thing. Like if you're like a Swedish girl in America or Irish American and you say Kim Kardashian, you can't ever really look like that. And if you try, then like people will kind of like bully
a lot of
you
people
or
say
whatever.
she's white, but she's not. She's not even white.
Yeah,
but hey, that's
those
up to
people
you,
can
bro.
pick and choose, you know. They'll be like white 1 minute, and then the next minute they're like, "Oh, I'm a minority, I'm Armenian, whatever."
This is why they can have their own category, and they are their own category. So I'm basically, this whole thing of hovering. I get what you're saying. That's why I made the term Maroni, because they are their own category. Like they're not black, but they're not Afro Euro, but they are their own category. Think about this, Dr. Davinsky. Do you remember what I said about how? Okay, let me put it like this.
Oh, you're
Maroni
gonna
is.
tell me your ethnicity.
Yeah. Apologies. I'm of Gambia. I'm of Senegambian descent. I'm in terms of ancestry, like I'm Malian, so Malian and Sierra Leonean, from what I've been
Mali,
told.
like that's I use Mali as an example quite a lot about like black people that want to claim like Egypt or whatever, and there's a big controversy about like the origins of it. But instead of doing that, Mali was a super impressive empire, like one of the most impressive really in Africa in terms of
Yeah.
like their expansion, technology, all of that. Like Mali was like a great empire actually, but no
Cool.
one really talks about them.
All right, cool. But hey, noted, man. But what do you think? Like, obviously they're in the middle. Like, instead of hovering, you can just give them their own category, since they are basically like, these are your blacks, these are your Maronis, these are your Afro Euros, Blasians, etc. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
again,
but
the
the
people
way
who are
that I see
predominant.
it is
Go on.
like you could do that, but it's kind of like the same people, like the Kim Kardashians for white, like they kind of hover, and they're like the border between that and like a different group, and I don't know, like if you can really change that
That's why
or
I
like
said it's really about genetics. All these labels and classifications are just going to lead to
I think it's
smaller and more. You know what I'm saying?
it's about geography more than genetics. I think it's about
No,
ancestry. I think it's better
it's
to like
just genetics, bro. Because that what makes up who they are. Their skin color, their what I'm saying, their
That's why I
phenotype,
said
all that stuff.
phenotype is a reflection.
instead of
Yeah.
going for like skin color and features, if you just said like, for instance, MC, if you said West African, Maronis don't look West African, so they couldn't claim that. Like they would have to be like, what's your ancestry? They'd be like,
But
oh well, I'm 75% West African,
what
25% Polish.
West Africa is just a location. Just because you don't that's what I'm saying. They group up these things and they put them together and that's what confuses people. Just because you're born on a certain soil doesn't mean that you're gonna pop up a certain color. Just because you're
Yeah,
born
but
in West
there's like an
Africa,
average. For instance, like my girlfriend,
not even
like
just
you know
average.
what
It's
they are. My girlfriend's like part Arab, part West African, and obviously she looks mixed because of that. So if like someone asked her, "What's your ethnicity or what's your race?" instead of saying black, she could be like, "Oh, I'm like Sierra Leone and Arab," and
Okay.
that would be
Yeah,
like
but that's
her
still not.
description.
That's still not. You know what I'm saying? How about yeah, it's still not gonna basically
Tell the whole
be
story.
sufficient. Yeah, it's not gonna be sufficient enough to give the yeah. Basically, it's not
But
gonna
it's
tell the whole
more
story.
accurate than say like I'm just black, because like if you say black, then you can include Maronis and these kinds of people. Whereas, but if you just go by ancestry, you get a DNA test, and like the Maroni people will be like, oh, I'm 25% white, 25%.
Are you guys suggesting that we just go by, instead of identifying by racial classifications, we just identify by our ethnicities or ethnicities?
I'd go by like geography. So like I
Oh
think
yeah,
there's
yeah,
an
yeah.
Not
African
Like,
not
instead of saying black,
geography.
we say
More
African.
Northern
this
European,
ethnicity,
Southern.
not geography. Ethnicity. The like
But you can geography is part of ethnicity, like your ancestral
it's
like
not it's not because just because you're born on a certain soil doesn't mean you're gonna come out.
But we're
If
not
your
talking about
parent,
yeah, but
nationality. We're talking about ethnicity, though.
yeah,
yeah, so I'm
come
saying like if you're born in Lebanon but you're 75% like I don't know, fucking 75% German from way back, then you'd be like, oh, I'm 75% German. It doesn't matter where you're born. It's more like where your ancestors
you
like
can be born. All right, let's say you have two Mexican people and they move to Canada. You're Mexican, right? You're still like that's what I'm saying. They label
Yeah, they're ethnically
they
Mexican, just nationally Canadian. Yes.
yeah, that's why it's confusing because we already use geographical location as
but
ethnicity when we
I
shouldn't.
don't think that
It's
nationality, like for instance, like Louis C.K. He's from Mexico, but he's Irish, and it doesn't matter where he goes in the world, he will look
shitty,
Irish.
bro.
He does because that's what he is.
Yeah,
You don't
ethnically,
look at him
yes.
and you're not like he's Mexican. You look at him and he's Irish.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's why there's a difference between ethnicity and nationality. Yeah, no argument. I agree. Yes.
And like for instance, there's a lot of Chinese in Jamaica now, and this video of this Chinese woman went viral. She was born in Jamaica. She was like, and she went out there. She's like, "Oh, Jamaica's not a black country. I'm just as Jamaican as everyone." Um, like Black Jamaican Americans aren't more Jamaican than me. It was kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah,
So.
but it's all about context. Like I said, there's a difference between ethnicity versus nationality. If someone says this person just because they're raised, like they're not more Jamaican than me, then in terms of nationality, then they would be right because it's all about
But
context.
ethnicity is like super broad too. Like
Oh
this
no, I'm
is the
not
thing
arguing
with
that. I was just pointing out that it's all
yeah,
about
but what I'm
context.
saying is like under various definitions of ethnicity, it's
Yeah.
also you could include nationality. That's why I think like say ancestry, like geographical ancestry, because there's no
Yeah.
ambiguity there.
Yeah. You could say ancestry. That's why I mentioned it earlier. Like that's why I added Mali and Sierra Leone, etc., etc.
Like that's way more specific because like no
Yeah.
matter where you go in the world, it doesn't matter if you have a British passport. Like nationality is cool too. Like obviously, like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
British, like you know British culture, but
Hmm.
ancestry is like that's
More
what I don't
specific.
like about Irish people. Like a lot of Irish people that I meet from here are like, oh, I'm half Irish, and they laugh at me. They're like, no, you're not. You can't be half Irish because they think that it's just a nationality, a culture. So it's really annoying actually because my family they came to Australia because they were fighting against the British and they were captured as basically slaves and sent to Australia. So my people like basically fought for their independence, were captured, and now we're not even Irish. I think it's kind of bullshit. Whereas like if you're Chinese, you can go to Ireland and you're like so. I think there's a difference in ethnicity. Like there's a big difference between ancestry and then nationality. So you got to be more specific like in an ancestral sense, I'm Irish, half Irish, no matter where I am in the world, you know.
Hmm.
Whereas
Okay.
they will never be that. They'll like if someone moves to Mali, like a Lebanese, they'll never be ancestrally Mali or whatever. What do you call a Mali person? Malinese.
Malian.
Uh, yeah, so
Like
it
N'Golo
is.
Conte, for example, he's a French, but he's of Malian descent or Malian ancestry.
The British law, because that's where like, I did a lot of research into race and ethnicity because I really do think like it can encompass anything. And if you look at British law, it really does. Like it's like if you look at race, like the definition of race, underneath that is national origin, ancestry, color, features, like basically everything is
Wait,
like
are you talking about the
identity.
definition of race?
Yeah, basically in the British law, in like these organizations, in like that's I can send you the sources like,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that's the same for a lot of like definitions. And so race is basically as broad or as narrow as you want to make it. So when I say like race, I think I'm referring more to ancestry in terms of how where people come from because
So then, what do you? So if that's how you're gonna define race, I get what you're saying, but then don't you think that's gonna what are we gonna use for people who share similar distinctive physical traits? That's what I use the term race for. Like, for example, black people look a certain way. Like when you have like a group of black people, they share the same similar, they share similar distinctive physical traits. Don't you think we should just? That's why I said we shouldn't conflate. I think we shouldn't conflate the two terms. Like we should say one is ancestry. Like this is race. This is what I mean. This is nuclear DNA.
yeah, but
So that there's no
what I'm
confusion.
saying is race is
Yeah.
an umbrella, and then underneath race, you have nationality, you have ancestry, you have like physical features, you have
Mhm.
like even culture. Some definitions include culture.
Can I tell you why they may have included like nationality and basically anything that isn't to do with your phenotype? I think it's because there tends to be a correlation. Like, a lot of
Yeah,
black people tend to have African culture because, that's where because Africa is, has the most black people. That's where black people you're usually going to see black people in Africa, innit? So there's a correlation.
and it's also like very socially constructed. Like there are obviously ancestral and physical features, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like what you call a group can change in time. And like that's why I
Mhm.
don't like the terms like Negroid and you're like Caucasian because it tries to put people in these concrete boxes that don't actually exist.
So what
When you
would
look
you like? What would you request? Like, what do you say we do from now on? Like to just like what is it that what is your point? Like, what do you
Well,
you know?
I like geographical ancestry. I think that the term like East Asian or South Asian is a very polite term. You get to know like it includes a lot of people, whereas like white and black they're very ambiguous. But you
Okay.
can also be like as broad or as narrow as you want. Like you can be like Korean, or you can be East Asian, or you can be like you can be Central Asian or Asian. You can like it's as broad or as narrow as you want to make it.
But what about when it comes to aesthetic representation? what are we gonna call like you know what I mean? Can we still just trying to see where you come from? So when it comes to representation, obviously
If
there's
you
going to
unplug your headphones and then plug them back in, you're going static.
me. Oh, I'm not wearing headphones, but hold on a second. Am I still going static?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, so are you saying we should stop using racial labels once and for all and just start using ancestry, like ancestral terms?
Well, I think that like in terms of like identifying a group, it's way better to use geographical ancestry. Like when you say white, everyone has a different perception of what white is.
I
If you look at
understand.
consensuses around the world, like in the USA, for instance, white
Yeah,
includes Middle Easterners, North Africans, and it causes confusion.
I agree. I agree. So
It's way too broad. Whereas like if you just say Northern European or Southern European or Eastern European, like
yeah, instead
it
of
gives
using
a
colors,
way
yeah.
clearer picture, right?
So
And even with
yeah,
Africans, you can be like central, like for instance, like the Dinka and then the Pygmy. They're very different in terms of looks, so you can be more precise if you know like the different phenotypes, or you can just be like African or sub-Saharan African. Like there's no
okay.
right or wrong answer when it comes to grouping
No, I know
people
what you
because
mean.
yeah.
All right. So are you saying so in a nutshell, get rid of colors as racial classification and let's say something different, basically.
Yeah, I think like the colors is very. I don't know. I've always found it a little bit disrespectful to like be
Yeah,
like
because like
white
we're
or
more than just
black,
colors. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, man.
and like we're not like for most of the time they're not even capitalized. And like I got into a debate once with this black English guy from Kenya, and he kind of like PC'd this one dude for saying blacks. He wasn't like offended, but he was saying, but some people find that offensive.
Hold on,
And
you
like
said black
I had
English
to,
guy from Kenya. So do you mean as in like he was born and raised in England and he's of Kenyan descent? Is that what you mean?
yeah,
Okay, just
yeah.
checking. Yeah, carry on.
And so he kind of like mentioned to someone that he shouldn't really say blacks because some people find it offensive. And at the time, I thought it was a bit ridiculous. But now, like after hearing his explanation, is I kind of agree. It's like when I tend to type white people or black people capitalized because I don't know. I just find it really like kind
It's
of
like
rude. Like,
reducing. It's reducing in a way, in the sense that we're more than just a color. Like just reducing us to just colors is. I can understand. It's a bit dehumanizing.
and it's like,
It can come across that way.
why do you capitalize other racial groups? Like Asians always capitalize, Indians always capitalize, whatever. But then whites is lowercase, and it's like, yeah, I don't like it.
I've
And
always
like
wondered
now,
that.
there's a trend on social media. Have you seen YT, like the letter Y and then T?
Yeah. Some people use YT like for white, or they use BLK for black.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
understand.
but at the same time, it's like I don't really care, but there are people that do care, and I don't. It's like I'd rather just. I don't know. I prefer ancestry. I think it's a lot better,
That
and
is
I don't think it's that hard to actually like to tell people apart. Like I'm very like there was one time, this guy in the group chat he put in like 5 faces of different European nationalities or ethnicities. He's like, "Can you guess where each of these were from?" And I got all of them right.
cool. There you go, man. Did you, if you don't mind me asking, did you say earlier that your girlfriend was African and Arab ancestry?
Yeah, but she's American. Like she was born in the U.S., but she's from West Africa. I won't say the specific country, but she's
No, that's fine.
yeah, she's Arab, and so like both her parents are more black than Arab, but
All right. So like in
both
the
of them look mixed though. Like both of them, you
oh
can
yeah,
tell.
yeah. No, I understand. Oh, just checking. That's pretty interesting. All right, cool.
Like there's a
Cool.
lot of people like that from what I gather in like West Africa around those like I don't know how I can say it without doxing her, but you know, like the kind of Arab ethnicity, like the more Arabized ethnicities.
Okay. Yeah. There's gonna be some in certain some a few parts. Yeah.
In Mali, because Mali, the richest man in the world was from Mali at one point, and he was Muslim. So, is there a big Arab influence there, or not really?
Oh, I mean, who do you think gave Islam to Africans? Where do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it more the Berbers or Arabs?
Good question. Berbers or Arabs? Well, What you're talking about the Arab slave trade, right?
I'm talking about like the spread of Islam and the Arab slave trade too. Because like I want to touch on. I didn't catch your live stream. What's your general take on religion? Do you think it's good or it's bad?
Oh damn! Yeah, I already did something. I already did a live stream on religion. I was like, yo, where's Dr Davinsky? But I guess you were busy.
Everyone, shout out your channel because I think everyone should follow you. I think you're a cool dude.
All right. So
I'll
my
pin you in the comments too.
Cool, man. My channel is MC. It's literally called MC Champ. And by the way, the person from earlier who was making stupid comments, pretending to be me, that's all it is. They were pretending to be me. This is the real me. Like, if you check my channel, you can verify who I am. But yeah, there was someone who was trying to pretend to be me, you know, wearing my, using my profile pic and saying ridiculous stuff in the chat. And then coming on
unfortunately, he comes
Davinsky.
from Ron's community, and Ron's a cool dude too. He's half black, half Mexican, and I actually like convinced him that like mixed people, like he should identify as mixed. I've convinced a lot of people actually about that, and they completely agree. Like he listened to our debate. He's a cool dude, and he comes from his community. He's like this gay dude, but he's like a stalker. So I hope he doesn't stalk you. He picks like one person, becomes obsessed with them. And like follows him everywhere.
What's his name?
He goes by Fruity Patootie.
What the hell? So he just stalks people?
Yeah, he picks a target and then he like obsesses over them and like when he was coming, remember he was coming on the live stream and like saying "Daddy" and then like this gay shit.
That was a guy?
Yeah, that was him.
Oh my! I thought that was a woman.
Like he'll join a Discord call. And for hours, I'm telling you, hours, he'll say the
Wait,
same
so
thing.
he's been stalking you?
He did it for a little bit, but not really.
Yo, people are messed up in this world, bro. People are messed up. But nonetheless, yeah, bro, I hope he's not stalking you anymore, you know, like
but at the same time, you don't have Discord, do you?
No comment. Now that you mentioned this person's a stalker, no comment.
Because if he's just on your YouTube, you can't do anything. You just block him, and that's it.
Yeah. But that's
cool.
pathetic.
Let's see if anyone else wants to join the chat. We'll get it popping again.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But
so can you talk about your view on religion in general, or just a little bit?
Yeah, I think it. There are a lot of people who are slaves to religion, basically. Like, for example, you know, this idea that, oh, I can't leave this marriage unless this person commits infidelity. No. That shouldn't be the case. You should be able to leave marriage not just because of infidelity, but for other, like, simply because, you know, you lot are really not getting along. Do you know what I'm saying? You should be able to leave marriage for, you know, other reasons, not just infidelity. Don't have this mindset of, I, you know, even though I don't get on with this person, basically don't use God as an excuse to stay in that relationship. If you want to get out of that relationship, get out of that relationship. This is why I say a lot of people are slaves to religion, because they let it control them.
Yeah, I really don't like religion. I think that it's overall a bad thing for society. I think like my problem with religion is like I don't believe in moral, like objective morals. I'm a moral relativist, and when you look at religion, it looks at morals in like it traps them in time. So like what we considered moral 2,000 years ago in a different society, different time, we don't consider moral today. And so that's my biggest issue is when you look at morals as a relative thing that can change over time, then it's a lot better because, like, for instance, like homosexuality, like now we deem that okay in society, whereas back in those days, they considered it immoral, and because it's been like sanctified by God, then there's no question in that. There's no debate in that. It's like, why is it immoral? Well, God said. How do you debate that?
All this talk about God said, like, you know, that's one of the reasons why I say a lot of people are controlled by, like, they're slaves to religion, because some people will use God as an excuse to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I've got to stay in this relationship, even though they clearly don't, you know, they clearly don't love the person anymore, but God has something planned for us. Like, what, bro? Like, or sis or whatever. Like, yo, get out of that relationship if you feel like you need to. Stop using God as an excuse.
Yeah, but when you look at God as like the holy word, like you can't challenge that, and it's like, I mean, you really can't. It's like
I'm just saying
he's the
don't
ultimate
be
authority.
controlled. I'm just saying don't be controlled. Like don't let don't let religion control you. Is all I'm saying. Like I get it. Like in
But
some
if you're
way.
religious, you do have to really be controlled by in order to follow it,
All
like because
right.
that's how you're meant to live.
Is their choice if they want to be controlled by religion or not?
But if you are religious, if you follow a text like the Bible or the
Yeah.
Quran or what's the Jewish book, the Torah,
Okay.
then like to be a proper Christian, then you do have to follow what it says.
Oh,
So
I
in a
wasn't
way,
even
you are.
arguing that. I wasn't arguing that. I'm just saying you have. So basically, in a nutshell, you have a choice to either be religious or don't.
Yeah.
Cool. There you
Yeah.
go.
My biggest issue with religion is like it takes something that's a belief, and it's cool to have beliefs, but then it takes it as fact that can't be questioned. And then like when you put it into state politics, then you're enforcing your beliefs that haven't been proven onto other people.
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah.
is
The whole forcing beliefs onto other people, they can't even prove it, and they come up with jibber jabber. Every time
yeah.
I hear someone trying to prove to me that basically proving to me about God's existence and blah blah blah. All I hear is jibber jabber. It's a way I switch off immediately. Like
Yeah.
they're still talking.
Because
It's like, yo, this is not
when
making
you get a
sense. It's not
book with
logical.
like thousands of pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can construe anything from that text. Like there's a famous prosecutor from France, I forget his name, and he said, "Give me 12 lines from the most innocent of men, and I'll find something that can hang him." So what he was saying is like you can write the most innocent thing, but with 12 lines, there's enough like words in there to misconstrue it to make him look guilty of
Mm-hmm.
like whatever. And that's so true. It's like that's what my issue is too with like these kind of PC social justice warriors is like it's hard to communicate because they'll misconstrue, and you can't really talk about a controversial topic without something sounding that could be misconstrued and making you look bad.
Well, you're just remember you're dealing with someone who's emotional to begin with. Like, just remember that. Not saying all of them are emotional, but a lot of them, these people that you come across, they're from the start they're willing to misunderstand you because they're
Okay.
emotional. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no,
I'm out.
but that's the strategy though. Is like when you call someone like a bigot or a racist, or then you've automatically on the defense, and
Yeah.
which makes you look like a bad person, and you're defending,
Mm-hmm,
which is
mm-hmm,
it's not right. So when people do that, I kind of just switch off the
mm-hmm.
conversation
But
because
Dr. Davinsky, I'll be back. Yeah, I'm just gonna sort something out. Yeah.
bro,
All right.
take
Peace.
care. Born again, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Oh, it's you. What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I was just going back and forth with your live, and
I liked
what
our
I
chat
would,
the other time. Actually, that was a good one. I recorded it.
well, I would advise white people generally is not to engage with non-whites when it comes to racial issues. And I say that because non-whites, most of them, they are coming into the conversation with the victim mentality, right? Which will hinder any sort of progressive dialogue. And they'll also use like the guests on your show. They'll use like selective history. You know what I mean? And recency bias to gaslight white people in a sense. Because, for example, he said that the white people captured the slaves from the west coast of Africa, which is not a true statement, right? It was
Yeah,
African
it's not.
different African tribes or kingdoms fought amongst each other, and the captives, the prisoners of war or criminals were sold
Yep,
to
that's
white Europeans.
completely true.
So black
So
Africa, yeah, sorry.
I read in a paper, an academic paper, that like there was trials with Europeans trying to raid coastal regions of Africa, and they completely failed. Like they weren't successful.
No,
So
because of
without
malaria,
the
they couldn't get into the interior of Africa. They had to get their
yep.
African agents to capture these slaves and to bring them
So
to
they
the
did
coast.
try it, but they failed. So if it wasn't for the African participation, the slave trade wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, so when we talk about reparations, are the African kingdoms who gained all, or chiefs who gained all this wealth from the selling of slaves, are they not part of this reparations talk?
Yep. Well, that's dude. Like this guy, I don't know what his problem was, but he didn't. We didn't even get to debate what we wanted to debate. The debate was, should Black Americans get reparations for slavery? And then I sent him another one saying, should, I guess, African Americans get reparations for slavery? And he harped on that point for ages, when like most people like, okay, Black Americans, African Americans is interchangeable. But then for the first like 20 minutes of the show, he was harping on that point, and like we didn't get anywhere. And then he didn't even end up like debating. He didn't have an introduction for the topic. It was like kind of ridiculous.
No, it was just victim babble. That's what I call it, victim babble. They're coming into this conversation thinking white man bad, black man good, and that you
Yeah.
owe him something. That's it. That is point blank period. That's what it is, and that's why I
He was
tell white people don't engage with these people. They're low IQ.
he was even worse than that dude, because he was saying like white man bad, non-whites good. So he romanticized everyone
Oh,
as a collective
he
group.
doesn't want to meet my parents then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's never been a time where non-whites viewed themselves as a collective. Never.
And you know what? It's disturbing. What I'm the narrative is that white people are somehow inherently just evil and bad, and they wish to colonize the world, which is not
Yeah.
which is not true. Like I said, that's selective history. They forget the
Yeah.
Arab conquest. They forget the
The
Bantu
Mongols.
the Bantu expansion. His own ancestors probably went from the Cameroon all the way to South Africa, killing and raping. See, this is
Yeah.
what I'm talking about: selective history.
And when you talk
Recency
about
bias.
non-whites, like even like related people, like Indians and Pakistanis, like sometimes don't even see themselves as one. So like this whole
No,
notion that like all non-whites, like Japanese and Nigerians, see themselves the same is like so like
he's
it's
he's an American. They're usually deracinated, so he doesn't understand the ethnic dynamics of how the world actually works.
I
Which
was
is
reading
ethnic.
about. Do you know who Farrakhan is? The Nation of Islam.
Yeah, that Jamaican immigrant to America that came to America and now is complaining how bad America is. Can you
Is
believe
he
that this
Jamaican?
Farrakhan guy is actually an immigrant from Jamaica?
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God, his
The one that's
parents are
the leader
Jamaican.
of the Nation of Islam, the old guy.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Go and read his Wikipedia. He is the son of Jamaican immigrants. And
Oh.
why not just stay in Jamaica if America is so bad, if the white man is so bad?
Well,
See,
I was
these
reading
people,
about.
they're not living their morals. They're not living their values. They're just perpetual victims, man.
Yeah, well, it's a big business. I mean, the Al Sharptons of the world, like, there's a huge money in this like victim complex. But what I wanted to say is, I was reading about the Nation of Islam a few days ago, and like, I didn't realize how bad it was actually. So they're not really even Muslim. I don't know if you're Muslim. You're from Pakistan, are you?
No, no, no. I'm an atheist. But someone in the private chat said he wants to come in.
Okay, I'll invite him in a second. What I was going to
Yeah.
say is, like, I was reading about the Nation of Islam, and so their ideology is that Allah is God, all Muslims are gods, right? But you can't. Oh, sorry, all Muslims are Allah. But you can't be Nation of Islam unless you're non-white. So he had the same ideology as this guy. So I meant to ask him, is he Nation of Islam? Because they basically exclude white people exclusively, but every other person they consider as black. Like, it doesn't matter if you're Chinese or whatever,
Yeah,
you're
the
black.
melanoids. I call them the melanoids. We're melanoids. But but listen, the Nation of Islam, their leader, if you look at it, Farhad Muhammad, the one who founded it, he looks Caucasian to me. Have you ever seen
Oh,
Farhad
dude,
Muhammad?
yeah, he was. I looked at him. I was like, because I wanted to read his early history, but I couldn't find anything on his ancestry. Like, I don't know
They
what he
say he was
was.
Afghani or Turkish, but he looks more Caucasian.
Yeah, he definitely looked like if he was black, he was like 10% black, if that.
No. See, this is lunacy, man. This is madness. This is why you can't take these people serious.
He kind of looked like Farrakhan in a way. Farrakhan's obviously a bit darker, but their hair and their kind of features looked somewhat like freakishly, like cultishly similar.
Yeah, I don't even consider Farrakhan to be black, but
yeah, neither do I. And then Malcolm X, also biracial guy. It's like, I don't get. It's like, you got to look at the world wholly, right? It's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you can look at the history of America. Sure, that was horrible what happened, but that was the way of life for most of history. And like, slavery was just, that's what I cited a lot of sources. He didn't actually engage with me, but
No.
they had a Cambridge encyclopedia and said most people in the world have been slaves or the owners of no both. So most people in the world have been both slaves and the owner of slaves.
Of
Right.
course, yeah.
And so, like, to think this is like a white issue, and even today, like millions of black people are enslaved in Niger, Mauritania, Chad, millions, and
Yeah.
by Arabs and Berbers. And what happens? It's a chattel slavery, so they're born
Yeah.
into it. These are black Berbers, and if they run away, the police who are Berber and Arab return them to the masters. So this is my issue with slavery in American context: is that it puts it in a museum, and there's more slaves alive today than at any point in time. So instead of like making movies about like the history of slavery in America and just demonizing white people, why don't we like look at it wholly? And then that, because it just breeds hatred. And the same thing
Yeah.
with the Holocaust. My issue with the Holocaust is when you talk about the Holocaust, it kind of puts the genocide in a museum. There's tons of genocides happening right now,
Yeah.
and they talk about
No,
never again. But like, what do you mean never again? There's dozens of genocides happening right now in the world.
it's the oppression Olympics. That's what's going on. And to be frank, you know, white people, white liberals, they have a lot to do with these narratives. For example, my parents, they have no victim mentality. They didn't
Fuck me,
even know.
daddies, fuck me. Fuck me, daddies, fuck me harder. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
People need to get a life. But listen, man, this narrative, like my parents, for example, right? They don't have a victim mentality. They didn't even know India was colonized by the British if you didn't tell them. You know what
You're
I
from
mean?
Canada, yeah?
I live in Canada, yes.
And
But
your parents were
what
immigrants?
immigrants, yeah. But what I'm realizing is that, you know, these white liberals, they're putting the notion in the minds of young non-white immigrant children that Canada or the West is rich because of ill-gotten gains from their homelands.
Yeah, that pisses me off so much.
And
Indians
this
do
is
that so
demonizing
much, dude.
whites.
You
Yeah,
know what happened? Like, okay, so I've had dozens of debates with Indians because I feel like out of all the people for ex-colonial like settlements, Indians are the most victim like playing.
really?
Like Nigerians and like West Africans, they don't really talk about like the actual people that live there. They don't really talk about that. Whereas Indians, they will calculate stuff like, oh, $1 trillion
40
was
trillion.
taken. But the thing is like, you know, there's tons of countries that are super rich in resources, but unless you actually get the technology, the infrastructure to mine that, it's useless. It's still sitting there. So
You
Uganda
know,
has something like $1 trillion worth in gold. North Korea has
listen,
$1 trillion in minerals.
listen,
But so like just because it was mined and exported, it doesn't mean that fucking like the Indians are any worse off. The problem today
listen.
is so India got independence at the same time as like Ireland, and like around the time that like Japan was bombed to smithereens and Germany was
Yeah.
completely decimated. But these other countries, they progressed, they overcame that from starting from scratch again. But India didn't. And like instead of blaming the West and the British explicitly, why don't you look at the corruption? Like corruption's the biggest thing there.
Mismanagement,
Yeah.
corruption. I tell people all the time, oh, Pakistan's a shithole. Why? Because the people are shit. You know, because the elite are shit. Because it's mismanagement, nepotism, corruption,
Yep.
and that's
Yep.
what these young people don't understand. They
That's the
think,
biggest thing in like the developing world, actually, in terms of these countries that haven't really progressed, is the corruption. Like it has nothing to do with the past. Like there's tons of countries that started from scratch, like dirt poor, that are super successful now.
yeah.
So it is
I
like
mean,
the internal.
why is the white man? Why is he letting the Japanese and the Chinese and the South Koreans succeed, and the Indians and the Black Africans not? It doesn't make sense, man.
Yeah, Thomas Sowell's one of my favorite personalities, the economist. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a black
Yeah,
economist. He's probably like
yeah.
90
I've heard of
now.
him. Yeah,
He's super good though, in terms of like he's to the point. He doesn't play the victim at all, and he talks about culture being the biggest factor. And one example he gave was the Chinese. Basically, the Chinese, no matter where they go in the world, they will kind of succeed because of their culture and their work ethic and
yeah. They
the
don't follow
discipline.
stupid religious beliefs. You know, like
Yeah,
other people. They're a cohesive bunch. They're homogenous. You know,
yeah,
there's. I mean,
and
listen.
they keep grinding and they keep grinding. Like you can look at, he gave an example with Malaysia where they came in and they were like discriminated against, but now they're like way more successful than the Malaysian population who get a lot of privileges for being native there.
Oh,
It's
those
because
Malay people are just so lazy, man. It's Chinese people that built Malaysia. Let's be honest.
and then Singapore, like Singapore also is example. That's basically a Chinese ethno state. Is like it tries to claim like multicultural, but it's like 80% Han.
Yeah, Chinese people are very impressive. Even in Thailand, you know, there's a small minority of Chinese people in these South Asian countries,
Yeah.
that pretty much run everything. They're the
Yeah.
Jews of Asia.
I went to a Chinatown actually up in the northern parts. It was Mei Hong Song, and it was interesting. They lived in mud huts, right? Um,
Yeah.
like so back in the day, maybe like 10 years ago, it was like they were actually like super impoverished, like actual mud huts with nothing. But now the mud huts are like modern and beautiful and stuff. Like it was one of the coolest Chinatowns I've ever been to. Is like
Hmm.
it was actually like super dope. Like because mud huts can actually be really nice. Like in terms of you know, but before they were in huts and stuff. Um, so it's
Yeah.
culture, you know. It's like that's the biggest
Do
thing.
you
Is
do
like
you, but if you look at the world map and socioeconomics, why are the tropical countries, why are they so underdeveloped, and people in the northern hemisphere or people that come from colder climates, why are they more successful regardless of race? Do you think the tropics, uh,
I
do you
think
think there's
it's
a
like
biological
so
reason for it?
there's a theory called the cold winter theory. I don't know if you've heard of it. Have you?
No.
So the cold winter theory, it's very controversial. Basically, the idea is that people that lived in colder climates had to have higher trust societies. They had to plan and have delayed gratification because in cold societies like Northern Asia, Northern Europe, you
Mhm.
have to plan for the winter. Like there's months where you can't get food, and if you're stealing from each other and have corruption in the tribe, you're all gonna die because you need to work together. You need to have a high trust society. Whereas
Yeah.
in hotter climates, you can run around. You don't really need a plan because things are blooming and like fruits in season all year. You can run
Yeah,
around
it's
naked.
abundance. You're living in abundance. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no scarcity and like it is easier to live here. Like, dude, like down in the south of Thailand, it's paradise. Like, I could, if you got washed up on an island there, you could survive easily. Like, it's never cold. There's mangoes, coconuts everywhere, fish
Hmm.
everywhere. Is
Hmm.
and it's like one thing
Do
about
you think
Thailand.
that? I mean, this is controversial, but do you think that because of the colder climate back in prehistory, the dumber or lower IQ people died off? But whereas
Yeah,
in the
yeah. Well,
sub,
that's part of the. That's part of. I mean, that's natural selection. I think that
yeah.
that's actually like. That's probably a good point. There's one guy in the group chat that I had before on Discord, and he had a theory that we should like have kind of sperm donors. So, like for instance, if you're in a country that's like underdeveloped,
Mhm.
people should like if you have a high IQ, you're super successful, they should donate sperm, and those are the ones who should procreate. And then over a period of time, maybe you'd get like a better population.
I think
Uh,
I think I think eugenics, but not from like foreign donors. Like the smartest people in these
yeah,
third
yeah,
world countries should overbreed. They should outbreed the dumber people.
yeah. But
And
the
if
problem is in these countries is like you know how India is the most populous country now in the world.
yeah.
That's not actually a good thing. Like as the country gets more developed and more educated, their population drops. Right, like
Mhm.
a high population in a country is a sign of an underdeveloped nation. Because if
Yeah.
you have women going to universities and stuff, and another thing is like in these poor countries, women tend to have a lot more children because they plan on some of those children dying. So like
Hmm.
they have more children as an insurance policy. So it's actually not a sign of development. Actually, it's like if you look at countries as they get more populated, and this is across the board, like you can look at more educated women in parts of Africa and like Asia,
Hmm.
the more
Yeah. Yeah.
educated they are, the less children they have.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah. You see that with India as well as it's progressing. The fertility rate's going down. But you mentioned something that's very interesting. You said that Hindus or Indians and were, I think you interacted with them in Australia, correct? They complain more about colonization.
yeah, and online too. It's not just like it's like Indians from India, because
To
I
be
tend to find like
That's
I
new to
tend to
me
find
because yeah,
westernized like POCs, whatever you want to call them, to be
yeah.
way more complaining about like white people than people from their native countries. But Indians, I think, are the exception. Is like if you mention the British to them, they fucking like.
They get
But
triggered.
it's also very split. There's a lot of people like me in the comment section are like, no, our problem's corruption. Like the British left decades ago. We need to take
Yeah,
accountability.
yeah. Because if you actually, I mean, I would, I check in from in white national circles. They actually like the Hindus because of their fascist
Well,
leaning and
a lot of Indians are very nationalistic. I've had Indians in the group chat that they're like the ones that they don't blame. They just they actually like China. They look up to China. Like they're like, oh, democracy is not right for us. We need an how do you say it? Authoritarian regime like China.
Authoritarian.
Because like democracy is way more chaotic, and to a point, they have a point actually. My nana always said that like a dictator in like certain positions, as long as they're like more for the people, they can progress a nation way more. Because with democracy, you have like less accountability. There's
Red tape,
way
too much
more
red
red
tape.
tape.
Yeah.
And that's why Thailand developed. If you compare Thailand to the neighboring countries, for instance, Laos is next door, and Lao people are basically Thai, like they speak the same language. Okay, and look at the Human Development Index. Laos about 137th on the table out of like 188 countries, like basically the bottom. Thailand's now 60th, and it's got a very high Human Development Index. Like Thailand is day and night, and I think the reason because of that is because they've had stability with their king for centuries. And they don't play the victim. That's one thing I love about living here is because they were never colonized. They don't have any victim complex or hostility towards the West, and they have pride in their country. Whereas if you look at countries like Vietnam or Cambodia, they're way less developed. And I think the reason for that is just not having. So the dictator, for instance, like if having a dictator is a lot better because like if you want something done, you just do it. As long as the dictator's for the people, and I don't even care. Like I don't care if they're filthy rich but you know, like Gaddafi as well. Like they can have
Like Gaddafi,
millions
Saddam
of
Hussein.
dollars, but if you
Hussein.
give out most of the money, then it doesn't matter if that guy's super rich and like corrupt or whatever. It's like if you've got to look at the metrics. So Thailand, for instance, the past few decades, they've improved the poverty rate by like I don't know, like 4 times, 5 times. Like people living longer. They have universal health care. They have daycare universally. These are policies that a lot of Western countries don't have. So you've got to look at the metrics, and if the country's progressing, then don't complain about the current system. Democracy is not for everyone. It's not like the be all and end all of like things.
But I think that's a tool for the West, you know, to get regime change as well. You know, if we look at
that's
the
what they do.
CIA.
As soon as they call your country a regime, then it's basically done. You know. That's the issue. Is like Rwanda's another example. The current president of Rwanda, he's been in for like I don't know 3 or 4 terms. He's obviously winning by corruption.
Doing very well. He's doing
well. Like the country's gone from genocide to like really advanced. Like
remarkable.
One thing I love about that is once a month, every single citizen has to go out and pick up trash. So it instills a sense of pride. It makes people not want to litter. And just that simple. And then he's like done tons of infrastructure projects. And I don't care if this guy has like 10 million, 20 million in the bank, so be it. Like it doesn't matter. If he's given most money to the country, like that's nothing really out of the pocket of the nation. You can still be super rich and you can still like be a good leader.
Do you
the
go
issue
back
is when
and
you
forth
take
into
in like
Australia?
Sorry?
Do you go back and forth from Thailand to Australia?
I've been here for like 2 years now, and I haven't gone home. My plan was to go back and forth, but my problem is the visa situation and COVID. And my parents and my family they've been meaning to come. So like it's like, oh, do I go back or my parents are going to come here? But we've been back and forth with that. Eventually, my plan is to live between both nations because I love Thailand, man. It's like I can't say anything really bad about it. Like me and my girlfriend, we've been everywhere.
What about the lady boys?
One thing that I've known about like this part of the world, like Laos and here, like Laos super poor, right? But we were there, we're walking around everywhere late at night. No one like if I was in like African country or Pakistan or Latin America, I would have been robbed. Dude, I would have been robbed, probably beaten up. But here, like it doesn't matter if these guys are dirt poor. They don't want to bring shame to their family or to their country, their image, which is like once the criminality, like the gangster culture sets in, like it has in Latin America, it's over with. You can never really undo that, you know.
Latin America's finished, man.
Like even the tough guys here with like face tats and stuff, they're still like super polite, you know. Like you go down the street late at night, and what they tend to do is they like gather like the younger crowd, maybe 18, 20. They gather out the front of 7-Eleven drinking because it's you can just get a beer for like $1 and just chill on the steps, like 20 of them, like young dudes. You'll walk past, they won't say anything to you. Whereas in Australia, if you walk past a bunch of drunk young people, they're going to harass you. They're going to say comments. They probably might try to fight you, especially if you're like foreign looking. or like not even foreign. Like if I walk through a Lebanese area or like a black area, I'll be targeted. It's just, but here it's like,
Really?
yeah, dude, like
That's
Sydney's
crazy. I
super
mean,
ethnically divided.
I mean, in Canada, you would not experience that, to be honest. We're as diverse as Australia, I believe, but that's
I
wow,
heard
that's
that like
crazy.
I heard that like Toronto is quite like ethnically divided too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's segregation. When the Indians come here, they all want to live with the Indians. When the Chinese want to come here, they all want to live with each other. It's not systemic. It's not systemic.
There's a lot of
And then you
Tamils
have
there.
the
I've
old,
heard.
obviously, the old Anglo-Saxon families, that have their own neighborhoods. So it's basic. It's not systemic. It's just.
Have you heard of a place called Brampton in Toronto? It's like I think
Oh
it's like
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I have. It's pretty much Indian or South Asian majority now.
yeah, but there are certain areas like Indians tend to be like the Chinese in terms of how they assimilate into the West. Like they don't tend to cause issues, but there's a few areas in like in the UK and in Canada where they do have like gangs and like shit like that. And that's my point. Is like once a gangster culture sets in, then you really can't undo it. It's the most toxic thing ever, and that's what's happened. Is like they think they're
America,
hard and they're oppressed and
it's
yeah.
it's 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 America, man. I think America needs to go down, man. It needs to be put down.
Well, certain aspects. I mean,
America has
I think
like
America.
destroyed Europe, man.
I think it's getting better though. Like if you look at rap today and hip hop today, is like in the '90s it was all gangster rap, but now you got like people rapping about their feelings and love, like Drake and Kid Cudi. Like the genre has definitely shifted away from that gangster shit. So I do think
Yeah.
that like gangs are seen as way more corny now, and like people are. I think it's good. I think that was an image that was pushed too, on Black
Yeah.
America, where
One thing
and
I noticed
it is
about yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
it does influence people too, even when I was younger I'd listen to gangster rap when I was like 16, 17, and I'd feel like a tough guy. I want to go cause trouble, and like it's like why.
Yeah, it's indoctrination. But one thing regarding Indians and Chinese immigrants, because I feel like the Chinese are more eager to integrate with the wider white society as an interracial marriage compared to Indians. Would you agree with that?
So in terms of I was looking at some stats the other day. Asian women, I presume it said Asian, but I presume like East Asian, are the most likely to date outside of their race. And Asian men are the least desired, like the least desired race. So like in terms of like partners they get, and I don't think they would date outside of their race too often because they're not seen as masculine. But yeah, like in terms, so usually you see a white man with a Asian girl. Like I lived in a place called Balmain. It was like the 20th richest suburb in Australia. I lived there for like 5 years. My nan had a place she bought there before it was gentrified, and
Yeah.
it was very, very common to see a white guy, like a nerdy guy, like super rich, with an Asian wife. Like that wasn't uncommon at all.
It's usually
Where
these corporate guys, these corporate
you
white
wouldn't really
guys. Yeah.
see that
Yeah.
with other races in like you wouldn't see white guys with like other races really. It's either white woman or Asian woman.
Why is that though? Why are Asians number two in white
Yeah, I
guys
don't know, dude. I
preference?
think like I think it's like I don't find East Asians attractive, honestly. I think that like they're
Yeah,
so
yeah,
overhyped. Like
yeah.
they tend to look very the same. They don't really have asses. They don't have boobs. They
Yeah,
they
yeah.
I think it's like I'm gonna how like teen
Hey
girls
man,
is like a
speak
big
your mind,
genre.
man. Yeah, yeah,
You know how teen girls is a very big genre on like porn.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's kind of like pedophilic in a way because like a lot of them are built like prepubescent white girls.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think
just
there's
genetics. Yeah, and then it's a beauty standard for them too to be thin, right?
yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. I like women with some hips and um, like I don't know. I think my type of girl actually, my favorite. I think like my beauty standard would be a girl that's like 75% like Northern European or Western European, and then maybe 25% black because I really like that caramel like light to complexion, long curly hair. Like someone who can like, pass as a white girl but has like
Got a
full
lot of that
lips.
in Brazil. You got a lot of that in Brazil and Cuba. Now,
Yeah, but
do you think?
those
Wait, I got a
people tend
question.
to be
I think there's a difference between like Southern Europeans mixing and then Northern Europeans, because they tend to have, I think Northern Europeans mixing with anyone has better features because of like the colored eyes and hair. And I think that's
What do
just
you think
generally a bit.
about this? What do you think about this? So there's a big gender war in America and the West between the men and the women, right? And I think that white guys should go to South America and start wifing some of these chicks up, because those chicks are predominantly European with a little bit
Uh-huh.
of admixture from Africa or Native Americans. But even
Yeah.
if you have procreate with them, the children are going to be mostly white,
Yep.
and
No,
and,
that's
and,
true.
and they're more submissive.
Hmm. No, I think that Mexican Americans are actually a very good immigrant group. They're probably one of my favorite immigrant non-white group in the
Facts,
West. And the
facts.
reason
Yeah.
for this is they tend to be super hardworking. They tend to be Catholic, which is more in line. Like it's shame not to work. They don't play the victim at all. They're more of a conservative base. They tend to be more pro-white than other groups, because they do have, like, it's funny because
They're
I saw this
50%
one guy.
European. Yeah.
There was one guy that went down to Mexico, and he was filming around different towns. He was asking, "What is your race? Is it black, white, Native American?" And even the real brown ones were saying white. Um,
Hmm.
but it was really strange. And then like, so you're right. It's like they do assimilate well, and then like within a generation, if you get a white-looking Mexican, like, and then she has a white partner, their kids will just be white, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's also they tend like
Justin Gaethje, the UFC fighter Justin Gaethje.
and the one the Canelo, what's his name? The redhead one, Canelo.
Canelo Alvarez. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's a UFC fighter Justin Gaethje. I thought he was just a regular white guy, but his mom is like a full blown brown Mexican.
yeah. There's also a little bit of a complex there. It's like a lot of them. It doesn't matter how white they are. They will just say, "Oh, like Cubans as well. Like Hispanics, they think that if you're south of the border, they're automatically non-white, and like they're
Yeah,
viewed
I think.
also as non-white, which is ridiculous because tons of
Listen,
them are just white.
the white phenotype is desired in Latin America,
Yeah.
and that's just the simple truth. If you look at the sperm donations, I think I was reading a study in Brazil. They wanted like 98% of the sperm donations. They wanted like white European who was over 6 feet tall,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
you know,
I kind of because I don't really plan on having children of my own. At least now, it's like I really love my freedom, but I do have a biological urge to spread my seed. So
of
I really
course.
do want to just like donate my sperm and have like tons of kids that way. Like that would be my ideal situation. Like if you can
Yeah.
have kids but not have to raise them, I
Hmm.
think that would be dope. Um,
Hmm.
but also I do want to do it with a white woman. I don't mind having a bunch of mixed race kids. But I do also want to know that I have at least one or two white kids.
You don't like, you mean mixed race as in predominantly white with a little bit of admixture?
Like if I go around the world and I donate to different like people
Oh, okay.
that like,
Okay. Okay.
and
Okay.
then like I have a bunch of half breeds or whatever. Like I don't mind that, but I do also just want to have some white kids as well. I think it's kind of like I don't know, dude. Like there's tons of people that come to Thailand and they have these half race kids, and
Yeah.
it's like I just feel like you should try and we need to increase our numbers as well. Like
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
okay to have
that
that,
that
but I
kind of
think
rubs me the wrong way. The sex tourism thing in Thailand.
well,
Uh,
it's not really sex tourism. It's like because they do stay with them, so you'll get like tons of white guys that come here and they get a Thai wife and they'll live here, have their family. But at the same time, it's like that's cool. You can do that, but you got to also procreate with a white girl as well.
yeah. That's the thing, man. These immigrants can replenish their populations, right, with mass immigration. But white people, I mean, their fertility rate is low, and there is no immigration from Europe, so it's going to be a demographic catastrophe.
Yep.
Um, so like, I don't know, man. I think they should convert to Mormonism or some shit, man.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's
I think
always
it's just
so.
nihilism that's killing white people, man.
There was one quote that I felt was kind of like a white pill, and it was from this guy called Weave. He's a super funny troll. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. And he said like, don't really stress about like the white race dying or whatever, because he said, and it's true. Right now, there's more white people alive than at any point in human history. You know, Like per capita, we may be decreasing, but as just a population, right now in human history, like compared to the 1800s or 1700s, there's more white people just alive around the
If
world.
you include Latin America, yeah.
But even Europe, I mean, like let's say, like
no, I think Europe is decreasing, bro.
But you've got to, like, for instance, the Jews have only ever been maximum maybe 15 million people for about 2,000 years, and they've been kicked out of every country. They've had genocide, and they still exist. So, like, if 15 million people can survive, then like a billion white people, or even 500 million white people, will survive.
But no, I concur. There's always going to be white people around, but will you have power? I mean, will you be marginalized in your own country? That's what the concern is, right?
Well, that's what J.F. Garapi, I interviewed him. I don't know if you heard him. He's a biologist, and his view is basically, because like when you look at these Silicon Valley guys and these elite kind of white people, they are marrying East Asians. You know, it's an actual thing, and so he thinks that like these Eurasian like offspring will basically come to dominate the West because they are ethnocentric.
Bullshit. That's bullshit. These guys are weirdos, man. These Eurasians are weirdos, man. They have no ethnic cohesion. If anything, I think Indians will probably take over the West before them.
But what do you think that, like, let's say you're half white, half Chinese? Don't you think that these people tend to want to marry another Eurasian?
No, that's the opposite. No, man. Those Eurasian guys, they want to marry white, but they can't. They can't get that.
There was a funny I think it was on 4chan. It was about Elliot. What's his name? Elliot Rogers.
Elliot Rogers, yeah.
And it was basically about the psychology of like the half breed, the Happer cell, Happer.
Yeah, they have severe issues, man. They have severe issues.
And the theory, I kind of get the theory. The theory was that the father cheated biology. So back in the day, someone like that couldn't have had offspring because he wasn't masculine. But now someone like that can be a computer programmer. And like it doesn't matter how they look, they will get an Asian girl because Asian girls tend to go for any white dude. They don't really care as long as they're successful. So they cheated biology. So these kids tend to have bad genetics, but because they're half white, they have a complex. I thought that was kind of interesting theory, actually.
Yeah, but you notice that, right? Those Eurasian kids, those Hapa kids are kind of like they're a little off, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And
give me one sec. I'll see if anyone else go. Oh, sorry, go on. You can still talk.
I don't think like none of these multiracial people are gonna build any sort of community in America, whether it be Hapas or mulattoes. I think they're just going to be just rootless consumers, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, demographics are important, and like sure, like white Americans are becoming a minority. They're already a minority majority, but at the same time, the other groups are still very small. Besides, Hispanics are growing. I think but then again, Hispanics are basically white as well.
Hispanics are pretty based.
Like if you take like even England, like let's say that England goes 40% white, the other groups are still very small. Like they don't have that cohesion either. They don't see themselves as one. So like Pakistanis maybe 6%, Indians maybe 6%, Chinese maybe 6%. So compared to like 40%, they're still a super minority people.
Mm-hmm. So when does immigration stop in your book? When it's no longer profitable?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think it is capitalism that's driving it. It's like they just want to continually increase the population, have more spenders, have more workers. That's the biggest drive.
GDP growth. Yeah.
Oh, one last thing I was wanting to mention about Mexicans is it's the reason that I like them as an immigrant group is because they do come over. So when you look at selection bias, right? And a lot of people say this, like, oh, let's bring over the most educated, the smartest people. But the issue with that is when you bring over the best of one group, they become an elite class. And you can see that now. Indians and Chinese and Jews are the most wealthy groups in America. So we're bringing over these people that become our overlords. These are the ones who have the power, the money. Whereas Mexicans, they come over and they do like, building, maybe a large, land. Like they're not going into positions of power. So there's a huge difference there. Like we're shooting ourselves in the foot by bringing in these elite
it's looking like the Asians are going to be the brains of America, and the Hispanics are going to be the labor force, man.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
and
I think white and black Americans are just going to be sidelined.
yeah, but these minorities that complain about white people in America, they've got to
No.
realize is that under like a Chinese like elite, they're not going to get any affirmative action. They're not going to get any of the shit that they have now, right?
Yeah.
They like these are like white Western concepts. Like there's no affirmative action in China for like the Uyghur or minorities there. Like the thing is like the Han favor the Han. Like in group preference is a natural thing. It's not seen as a weird thing there.
Yeah, I believe you. I think if the Chinese were to rule America, I don't think blacks would even exist in like the next 20 years, to be honest.
Yeah, you can see it even now. Is like when they were talking about like the Harvard scandal, whereas like Asian Americans, they're getting screwed by affirmative action. They're getting the best marks, but because you need to have per capita representation, they're complaining about that now,
Yeah.
right?
There's
If they had
quotas.
the
Yeah, there's
power, they'd get rid of that instantly.
yeah. I mean, they're accepting low IQ Hispanics and blacks over capable, intelligent Asians, which is really hindering the progress of the United States.
Sorry, say that again.
I said they're accepting low IQ Hispanics and blacks into these colleges and denying like intelligent Asians, which is hindering the progress of the United States.
But I don't mind. I don't mind affirmative action. I think that there should be some kind of representation, because
No,
at
I
the
don't think so. I
I
think in
don't want to
2023, America awards merit, man. I don't. I think
I don't
you,
want to.
they should.
I don't want to get an overlord class though, and that's what's happening. Is like you look at STEM and like I don't know. I don't think that Asians or whatever should have all of these elite positions. I think it's better to have some kind of representation, and
Mm-hmm.
even for white people, because white people don't perform as well. And it's not again, it's culture. Like I've spoken to tons of Korean Americans, and what they mostly did, right, is like, and these are even middle class Koreans, is after school they'll do a full day of school, and then they'd go to after school for another 8 hours. So they did 2 school days in one day, and that was just normal to them. So how do you compete with that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're
Um,
right.
so at the same, so when I look at skilled labor shortages, and this is how I would have immigration, is I'd make it lax for white people to immigrate to other majority white nations. I'd make it, especially like, so I call them new age whites. No, sorry, new
Mm-hmm.
world whites. So
Mm-hmm.
Australia, Canada, America, we're very similar in the sense that we all have like very ethnically diverse European heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Europeans tend to be a way more homogenous, like they'll be like 100% Irish, 100% Serbian, like they're
Yeah.
way more homogenous. Whereas like the average Australian is probably like, or like Americans, like 10% Italian, 10% German. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a different breed, and we're very culturally similar. So I'd make it very easy for us to assimilate into and to immigrate, but I'd make it very hard for non-whites to immigrate. The exception I'd make is through marriage, but they'll have to be married for a long time before I'd give them citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think you can stop someone who loves each other from being together. But the issue in Australia with the marriage thing is you only have to be married for 2 years and then they get citizenship. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
working at a casino,
Yeah.
there was tons of Chinese girls. That the whole purpose of working there was to save up 50,000, pay an Australian citizen to marry them, and that was the scheme, and that's how they get
Oh man.
citizenship. Like, dude,
Mm-hmm.
I got offered twice, and I was only there for like a year. Offered twice 50,000 to marry them, and it's like what? It's like
Yeah, you should have took the money and ran, man.
I was considering it, but at the same time, it's like I
50
had some
large.
assets at that time, and like they have claims. If you're married, though. But
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
it's like 50 grand's a lot of money.
It's crazy. I thought China was developed. Why are these people coming over, man?
China's actually not that developed. It's only in regions, and like in certain, like most of China's like it's very subsistence living.
Apparently, there's a demographic crisis in China. I don't know. I think it's propaganda, to be honest.
I don't like the term these demographic crises in terms of like an aging population, because populations naturally they fall and they rise. Like is what's unnatural is continual growth. So
Mm-hmm.
because they use this to like kind of push for immigration. They'll be like, oh, we've got an aging population in Australia. We need to bring in immigrants.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Like, I'd rather just pay taxes, a bit more taxes, or if there is a shortage of workers, bring in workers from other countries temporarily, like they do in Japan and the Gulf region.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, I was hearing automation's gonna take over. No one's gonna have a job, but apparently that didn't happen.
Well, it's still happening. You still see that happening now. Like, do you know this new chatbot? Like all these AI chatbots, they're starting to write BuzzFeed articles and shit like that. So, like everyone, like there's a high risk of like a lot of jobs going under in terms of automation. And like, I don't like when people say, "Oh, well, they create more jobs, so you have programmers." But the average person that gets automated, they tend to be low skilled. You can't expect a truck driver who gets his job taken over by AI to become a programmer, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think the world is going to a better place, and like I do thoroughly believe that. I'm not black pilled really. I do think that we just need to change a few things in terms of our culture, which would be better for everyone. Like we got to stop this guilt culture for white people, this shame.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it hurts everyone. Like a lot of times, like if I'm in a room with like someone, and like it happened a few months back, maybe like 6 months ago, I was in a bar, and it was me and the three English dudes, but the English dudes were like they were mixed, like Arab looking, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me about racism and stuff, and it's like I feel like I can't really be honest because I don't know like how these guys think, and it's like
Yeah, yeah.
whereas like here you can say whatever you want, and it's better like that. It's better to engage, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel for you, man.
That's
But
why minorities, you know how like a lot of minorities in the West, they feel close to each other. They feel like they relate more. But that's just because they can say shit to each other. Like they can joke
yeah, man,
around
that's
about their
bullshit,
race and their
man.
ethnicity. That's what it's a
They can
bonding
gaslight
thing.
white people. That's all.
Yeah.
That's it, man. It's no real ethnic cohesion or solidarity here, man. In
But
Canada,
it definitely is
just
changing. Like when I was at school, like the accepted thing was like white people were racist, like Aboriginals couldn't be racist. But now it's definitely changing. Like there's way more minorities speaking up and like calling out the bullshit.
oh my god, Australian Aboriginals. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of friends, but most of them, honestly, most of them are they're super anti-white. Unfortunately, even so, what I noticed is like the ones that are like the most mixed, like they may like be 10-20% Aboriginal, they look white, they're the most racist actually
Mm,
because they
that's funny.
overcompensate.
Yeah, yeah, overcompensate. Yeah, but hey,
Yeah, but
man,
the black ones actually like call them out a lot of the times because they don't like it either. They're like, you're not black, whatever, you're white.
you fucking fraud.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's
bro, I
bullshit,
gotta.
dude.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had to go. It was good talking with you, man.
Okay, yeah, dude.
We'll,
Another
we'll talk.
time we should chat.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I
You have
think
a
we
good
agree
day.
on a lot of things. You're easy to talk to too.
Yeah, man. I don't get
I'm
offended
thinking
with
of doing
anything.
like maybe like a weekly or a fortnightly podcast. Because my channel's about to be monetized, and then if I get like 3 guests or 4 guests, like not guests but co-hosts, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you and maybe 2 others,
yeah, yeah.
then we could like split the proceeds or whatever.
Yeah, I'm down to talk about geopolitics, race, anything, man.
Yeah, no, and you're pretty knowledgeable on stuff too, and you do have a different perspective, and like
For
people
sure, man.
like it when there's a
You,
bit
you,
of
you gotta have some
diversity.
melanin in it. You gotta have
Yeah,
some
yeah,
melanin in it.
because
All right, bro.
yeah, dude. Well, take care. And
Take care, man.
do you have a contact that maybe you can private message in here?
To be honest, I
Like
just have my channel, man. Can you
you don't
private
have
chat?
like a private email or IG or something that I
No, I
can.
never really made a private email. I just have my regular email.
Yeah, because
Uh,
I have to reach out to you somehow.
yeah, okay. I'll type in my. I'll make a private email and I'll leave it on the comments. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Or actually, I'll send you mine in a comment, and then you can just
Email it.
message me when you have one.
All right then, bro. Take
Proton
care, man.
Mail is probably the best. Proton Mail is like encrypted, and like that's what I use for social media. It's like it's a protected one, you know.
Okay, okay. All right.
All right, bro. Take care.
Take it.
All right, guys. Well, that was a great live. We've been on for like 4 hours almost now, 3.5 hours. If anyone else wants to jump on, then I'm willing to let you come on. What you need to do is click the link in the comment section, and I'll invite you on. You don't need to make an account. You just click the link and you pick a username, and it's very simple. You just jump straight on. Yeah, what MC Jam just said is what I've heard a lot of people say. I'll be frank, white people have been the least racist to me out of all groups. And I don't know if you saw the rebuttal video from that biracial guy. I don't know if you saw the video from that biracial guy, but he made on us about our discussion, but he said the same thing. Like, you're always going to get bad apples in every group, but he said that overall, Europeans have been the most welcoming. So I'll leave this on for a moment. Anyone that wants to join, just click the link in the comment section, and I'll be back in maybe like 5 minutes. I'll be back.